This one here is, I don't want to say signed, sealed, and delivered, but the fat lady is in the back warming up her vocal cords. Tanton Woolridge leads by 30 points coming in to this final race. 5 wins compared to Dawson Noble's 1. They'll come by this time to the white flag. Final lap of the season for Tanton Woolridge. Christensen closing. We got a battle for third on our hands. Caden Tufts trying to hold on over Dawson Noble and Brooke Dow. But up in front, he will cap his championship season with a 6th victory in Halifax. Tanton Woolridge to victory lane. Second is the 24 of Aiden Christensen, and Caden Tufts top 3. We'll head down trackside and chat with your winners.
Dawson Noble will pull up for that 4th. So as he comes to take the checkered flag now, everybody give it up for the 0 car of Tanton Woolridge. Solid performance all season, and just what a solid battle to really cap off these Bandolero cars for our final night here at Scotia Speed World in 2021.
Chat with our champion. We believe the first ever Prince Edward Island champion on the CarStar Weekly Racing Series is Tanton Woolridge. First of all, let's talk about the race. It looked pretty calm up in front. What was it like behind the wheel?
No, that was good. You know, Dad and Papa, they got this thing hooked up every week. You know, the 24 was there. I could feel him definitely creeping down my neck. So, no, it was a great race, and congrats to all the other drivers.
6 wins here, Oyster Bed Championship, Track Championship here. Does it get any better?
No, I don't think so. This is it's been a dream season. You know, when we started the season, we had goals, and that was 2 championships. So, you know, we're just glad we were able to pull it off.
From our recollection, first ever PEI champion here on the Car Star Weekly Racing Series. How cool is that?
That's amazing. It's cool to bring it back to PEI, and you know, I hope that you know, some kid in the band of PEI can come and take one in the future.
Who's on this race car?
Yeah, I got to thank McKinnon Service Center, Harrington Hilton, Tim Myers Excavation, Pinos Fuels, Matheson Eyewear, Good Guys Auto Glass, Cowie's Equipment. Like they do a ton for us, and you know, I hope they can be back on board with the Legend car next year.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's Tanton Woolridge. Quickly over here to Aiden Christensen. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome into Tim's Corner Live, episode number 52. The gang is back together for a week. Tim Terry, Dylan Langell, Denver Matchett, ready to go for 2 hours-ish of racing conversation. And Dylan, we were just talking before we came on air. This has been a busy week.
It's been busy ever since you left, pretty much. You went to the States and just stuff started piling in with COVID restrictions going away. This track's doing this, that track's doing that. And this week, how many schedules have popped up here, Tim? It's getting us all very excited. If you want to set up an OnlyFans to get our gas fund going, but once everything gets going, it's going to be really going, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. We got 3 and change to talk about here in just a moment before we get to our lineup. And jam-packed lineup. First of all, we had Robbie Thompson lined up for tonight's show. Robbie's been busy, but he tells me he's got a big announcement coming up next week. And I told him the only way he can come on next week is if he brings us the announcement. So that's what we're going to do starting next week. Robbie Thompson going to be first on the show. And we're going to roll in with some sort of announcement from Robbie Thompson Racing. We do have Dan Eddy getting ready to join us on the show. We also have Mike Duskey, the 42 Pro Stock from Oyster Bed Speedway. And of course, we're going to chat with Austin McDonald, who's getting ready for the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour season opener coming up in a couple of days at Caraway. So, Denver, how has New Brunswick been?
Cold, a little bit snowy. I think, you know, I shoveled a lot of snow this past week, but we got to have a banquet at Speedway Miramichi on Saturday, so that was fun. You know, Jungle Joe's packed the best attended banquet that we've ever had, so that was awesome. Congratulations to all the champions. And, you know, I think this is the first time you missed the Miramichi banquet, Tim, but I can say second. Okay, well, there was no clocks thrown and there was no karaoke. So
was Six Pack there?
Six Pack was not there. I don't know where he is. I don't. Barry hasn't mentioned him. I don't know. We have to maybe send him a search warrant for him or something here.
So from my understanding, Six Pack not there, me not there, Joe Hoyt not there. So there was no party on the weekend. Doug Matchett might have been there, but there was no party on the weekend.
Well, you could say that, I guess.
So, something like that. But it's always great to have that banquet and restrictions lifting and everything else. We came in off the Scotia Speed World virtual banquet. And I know there's a lot of people upset. Dave Matthews is ripping mad about not having a banquet. But here's the deal. And there's a lot of things to go into this. And Denver, you can relate to this as well. With Miramichi, you have what, 50, 60, maybe a little more? What'd you have on the weekend?
Our guest list had just under 60, which was that was the capacity that we had to work with. So we had 60 people.
So Scotia Speed World with their 5 divisions is typically 200 to 250 people. Trying to find a venue for that before the restrictions lifted, because you have to plan in advance. There's no way to do that. Then the restrictions lift and everybody thinks, oh, okay, we can find a hall and we can find a caterer and we can go do this. No, we can't. There's no way you can put that into a month and have everything successfully planned, sell tickets. And oh, by the way, it's not a moneymaker for the racetrack by the time you buy food and everything else and get the trophies and what have you. This thing's a business too. You have to understand on that side. Jessica Somerville, Tara Foster have done a great job trying to put everything together as they can, but they can only put so much together in so little time. So, and oh, by the way, we have a new general manager coming for Scotia Speed World. Dan McLeod's coming in 2023. Ken Cunning stepping back at the end of this coming season. So there's also that transition that they've been trying to go through as well. So we're transitioning from one year to another. We're also transitioning general managers. Everything's changing. The season's coming up, so I know there's people that are upset we're not having a banquet. But there's also that other side where it is a business. There's stuff going on. There's transitioning periods going on. This actually tonight was supposed to be the 660 virtual banquet night, and then restrictions started to lift. And I don't know what their plan is. They are planning on having a small sort of celebration celebration. We don't know what exactly that small celebration entails or how many people or what have you, but that was the last that I was told from the 660 side of things. So Denver, you can attest to it. It's not easy planning one of these things. I wouldn't want to be in Ken Cunning, Tara Foster, all those shoes over there trying to put together a banquet with 250 people, because you cannot do it just as soon as those restrictions drop.
Yeah, it's tough. We've been trying for 2 years now to get a banquet in Miramichi. We ended up losing our banquet in 2020, and we were, I think, in Miramichi, one of the only tracks, maybe the only one that actually crowned a points champion in 2020. So we had that thing planned, and with COVID, one of the worst things that we've seen come of it is how quickly things can change. We were all systems go. I think we had 60, 80 people last year planning on attending, and we had to cancel the day before because restrictions changed. So it's definitely tough. We were fortunate to get in, and a lot of people, even though we were at the capacity we had for Jungle Gyms, I know there was a lot more people who wished they could be there. But we were put in a box of making a last minute decision to have the banquet and trying to plan it in about a 2-week span. So that makes it tough for people to get time off and be able to accommodate schedules and travel and whatnot. So it's definitely not easy. And as tough as it is scheduling and working with the logistics of racing in the summertime, trying to do a banquet in the wintertime is hard enough on a good year when you account for capacity limits and snowstorms and all that fun stuff. You throw in COVID, it's really a logistical nightmare, and it's not fun. But hopefully, with things lifting and lots of positivity, we'll at least be able to, in theory, host a banquet for the 2022 season across the Maritimes at every track, as long as we can afford to drive to them.
Absolutely. And hopefully everything, knock on wood, is back to normal in 2022, and we can host a regular season, a regular banquet, all this fun stuff. Speaking of schedules, though, because I want to get to Dan Eddy at some point tonight, and this schedule thing's going to take us a couple of moments. We've got 3.5-ish schedules to look at. So let's look at this one first. This is the Scotia Speed World schedule on your screen. And I mentioned last week there's a lot I like about this. The Shriners Classic is back, obviously. That's going to be big. The Sportsman 100 is back. That's going to be a huge thing. 4 East Coast International Pro Stock Tour races. 4 o'clock starts for those, by the way. So it's easier for a team that's traveling to go home after that show, and they're not packed. There's a maximum of 2 support classes on those nights. World Series of Monster Trucks are there in the 1st of August. You do have the midseason break for the IWK 250 weekend. NX National Qualifiers. You have the Mass Series coming in July before the IWK 250 weekend. The Tour Sec Thunder and Lightning Twin 50s are back on the schedule. Those extended races are there. CNAF is back for their kids race. There's a lot to look forward to on this schedule. Dylan, I know you've been around Scotia Speed World for a while now. It's a lot of racing, and I think that's the biggest thing that everybody's been saying. There's 17 weekly racing series events on the schedule, but we're gonna see rain. We don't make up Friday night shows, so that 17 is quickly probably going to become 13 or 14 before we know it. But there's a lot to like here.
Yeah, there is. When I saw that was my first thought thing. And holy mackerel, there is a lot of racing here at Scotia Speed World between the Car Star Weekly Racing Series and then your tours. Of course, I'll be there with the Auto World Maritime All-Star Sportsman Series there on the 16th, which is going to be a little fun there. Heart of a Champion Hot Rod Classic is going to be there during the August race. Don't know if it's a 250 or whatever. I would assume it would be a 250 at this rate, not doing the doubleheader thing like they did last year. Okay, yeah. That's good. But there's a whole lot of racing there, a lot of opportunity to go to Scotia Speed World at some point in the spring, summer, and a little bit into fall there. But I can see Jason Pickles here in the comment section. He just wrote, "Can't wait." That is a lot of racing, not just for the fans. We were talking yesterday, Tim, in Denver. That is a lot of racing for the drivers. Sportsmen, you put in all the other tracks, mini stocks, a lot of pro stock races. If everything goes smoothly, which it looks like it will, at least with the COVID side, it's going to be a busy 2022, almost making up lost ground for the past 2 years, to be honest with you. If everything goes smoothly, which it looks like it will.
Yeah, they're going to hit the ground running. Denver, what do you think of this schedule?
I like it. It's busy. Busy is a good thing after the last 2 years. And, the Scotia Speed World Weekly Friday night Car Star Weekly Racing Series has been strong all of 2021. And it was great to see, after 2020, there was a lot of uncertainty all across the Maritimes as to how things would rebound. And in a condensed season, the highest field of sportsman cars on average, great fields in all the other divisions, and some fantastic racing. So I think there's a lot of momentum coming in from 2021, and with capacity limits being lifted and all that fun stuff, really a lot to look forward to in 2022. I think that Maritime All-Star Sportsman Series race in Scotia, that I'm interested to see how that goes, because that's something new. A lot of the rest of the schedule is kind of similar to what we've seen in past years. Scotia has built a successful brand, a successful schedule, where with the Pro Stock Tour dates and the Friday night shows. This is something new. It's a new series that Craig McFedderich and the team have been doing a great job at. So I think that Scotia already has a big field of sportsman cars on Friday night. Throw in some invaders, some people who maybe wouldn't be able to travel on a Friday night to Scotia. I'm sure they'll be there on Saturday, and it'll be a great field. So that one really catches my eye. And of course, Monster Truck's coming back. That's always packs the place.
Mike James is coming back.
Yes, well, he's coming. He's not coming back. It's first time to Scotia. So and it's not the only Maritime stop. I'm not going to let anything else out of the bag, because I'm going to get Mike James upset at me. But it's not the only Atlantic Canadian stop, and obviously Eastbound is probably trying to work something up, and I hear there's maybe one more on the horizon as well. So once we know the information, we will let you know. With everything going on with COVID and trying to get trucks across the border and everything else, it's not easy for him to do anything like that, like it was last year. Something you're familiar with, Dylan, here is the Heart of a Champion Hot Rod Classics presented by Conrad Brothers schedule on your screen. And Dylan, the one thing I like about this schedule, it's 7 events, 1 at each racetrack. They are separated apart. There's only one back-to-back weekend, and it's in August. I like this schedule.
Yeah, me too. And really, we're covering almost all bases there with this schedule. I think the only tracks Denver and I were talking, the only tracks we're missing is Speedway Miramichi and the Shediac Center for Speed, and who knows. But we're going to start June 4th with the Maritime All-Star Sportsman Series on Saturday, June 4th. That's going to be a wicked show. The fine folks there at Lake Dowsett Motor Speedway, they've already been very accommodating, booking hotel rooms for the staff and everyone between both tours there. I've seen a couple TikTok videos already hyping this race up. Then we go to Petty Raceway for the Riverglade International, back at Oyster Bed with the East Coast International Pro Stock Tour, July 30th. That's the Natal Day, New Brunswick Day weekend. Scotia Speed World for the Cat 250 weekend, Riverside on August 20th. That's that back-to-back deal, but staying in Nova Scotia, and that's the grassroots racing night. Then we race on the Saturday of Speed Weekend this year, not the Sunday. Last year we were a late edition. This year we're on the Saturday show of Speedway 660 Speed Weekend, and then we wrap up in Sydney. There, Tim, that's the
wrong date. That is definitely the wrong date. That's October 1st.
October 1st. So so October 1st fans there for that final one. So, we're going to start in June and wrap up in October. And I really do like this schedule. Last year, we added a few extra races. We went to Petty twice. We were there for the Mike Stevens weekend. But that Mike Stevens weekend, Tim, in Denver, it's really, really packed as it is here. And, so, we're kind of replacing it there with Lake Dowsett Motor Speedway, bringing this tour to a different part of the Maritimes that has never seen something like this. I'm very excited for that first race, especially because of the hospitality and the fans there in Southwest Nova Scotia, the French Shore. It's going to be an amazing time with Mass. And if you're looking for more information, heartofachampion.ca is the place to go for that.
And we're going to try to get Pat Lawrence on the show here in the next couple of weeks to not only discuss this, but if you go to the website and you look at the press release that they put out, there's some names coming back and there's some new cars coming back. I think I saw Peter's name on one of those cars, Paul Blankhorn.
Yep.
Mike Fancy's going to be there with one. Barry Hubley's going to be there. Like it's growing. So head to the timscorner.ca has the press release. Heartofachampion.ca has it as well.
You forgot about Ricky Miller, man.
Well, they've been building a car for a couple of years now, so I'm going to believe it when it comes out. Okay. I know Amber McDonald is in the chat. I know she's going to tell me whether the car is ready or not. But again, that last date's October 1st, Sydney Speedway. Paul, roll the next one because I want to get to Dan here in a moment anyway. Maritime Street Stock Series, Denver, 5 racetracks, five races. This was formally announced about 20 minutes ago. And here's the one thing I want to point out on this. We did have a couple of conflicts between racetracks. There was the gentleman's agreement on this series was when one of these series races takes place, The other 4 racetracks have their street stocks off for the entire weekend. The street stocks aren't racing anywhere else except for that one Maritime Street Stock Series race. We had 2 conflicts. Actually, we technically had 3. Those were all resolved yesterday. It took a little bit of 11th hour negotiation to get them done, but they're all done. Here are the dates. These dates are the only dates that you'll see street stocks at those racetracks. So it starts June 4th, 4,000 to win Old Fashioned Meat Market 100 with the East Coast International Pro Stock Tour at Petty. Next week at Speedway 660 for the Target Windows and Doors 100. Center for Speed on July 17th. August 27th at Oyster Bed Speedway. That race was an excellent show last year. And Speedway Miramichi for the very best fall shootout to close it off. Denver, this is, again, besides one back-to-back week there, this is a nice looking schedule for the street stocks.
Absolutely. Both the Hot Rod Classics and the Maritime Street Stock Series, 2022 will hopefully be the first year that things run normally after 2020 and 2021 both had, complications, let's say. From a Miramichi perspective, I'm thrilled that once again, we're the finale. The very best fall shootout is going to be exciting, and it was exciting in 2021 to say the least, but every track's got a race. I think, Tim, to add to it, I think every race is going to pay a minimum of $1,000. And don't quote me on that, but I think that's what's been discussed. And obviously, some races are going to pay more. There'll be contingency prizes, bonuses. If you have a street stock, you want to circle these 5 dates on your schedule and go chase some wins, some big trophies. And the trophy to win this series, Tim, is I know we have the tallest trophies in Miramichi, but it's probably the heaviest trophy to win this series and definitely the most unique one.
It's the most unique trophy I think we have in Atlantic Canada right now. But yeah, you mentioned it. Speedway 660 is 1,000 to win. Oyster Bed's 1,000 to win. Miramichi's 1,000 to win. Petty is 4. And I don't know what Tim's purse is. I know he was trying to figure that out, but we wanted to get the schedule out and at least the top 5 in payout for the championship for those drivers. So it's on timscorner.ca, oysterbetspeedway.ca, and of course speedway660.com. One more. This is the 2022 season opener for Sydney Speedway. It has been a busy week. Saturday, May 28th. Do not have a time on that yet. They're still trying to figure that out. Sportsman, V6 Thunder, Mini Stock, Bandoleros on the card. Dylan, we just mentioned that the Hot Rods are going to be there October 1st, so you can mark that on your calendar. Mass is going to be there on August 6th. I can tell you there are 2 more dates. I can't tell you what they are, but we're still trying to finalize those dates. There was one schedule that came out this week that had us kind of reeling and trying to get something else together for that date that we had planned. So it's just these racetracks working together and trying to make everything happen. But Dylan, that is your season opener for Sydney on the screen, and I know you're excited to get back there at least a couple times this year.
Yeah, I am. I'm going to definitely be there for the August 6th race with Mass and then October 1st with the Heart of a Champion Hot Rod Classics. But that is the season opener. And, end of May, everyone knows the past 2 years in Nova Scotia, we have not had May racing. We're going to start with the East Coast International Pro Stock Tour, May 21st. And then Scotia is going to have their weekly racing series open up there the day after. And then the following week, we go up to Sydney there for that opener. And what a fantastic racetrack under new ownership with Linda McDougall and Kyle McKinnon there. The work they put in for that last race, the only race they did in 2021 was outstanding. To see what they can do before that date, it's going to be incredible. So keep your eyes there peeled. timscorner.ca, Sydney Speedway. A few more extra dates to be on there, but we know 3 for sure: the 28th of May, August 6th, and October 1st.
And I can tell you there is a early summer, late spring date there somewhere in June. And then they're going to take probably the month of July off. And the only reason why, and you hit the nail on the head, Lyndon told me they've still got stuff to do that they can't do with wet ground. They've got to have the ground settled. They've got to change some stuff around, move some stuff. So that is why there's going to be a break in that schedule. There's not going to be a ton of races this year up there, but there's going to be just enough to make everything happen. So excited to see the rest of that schedule. Excited to be there on Saturday, May 28th with the season opener. And I'll tell you the little story. I made a little phone call last week, and because I told Lyndon I'd help him out. I'd help him and Kyle out. There's only one little condition that I have, and that's if I bring my buddy Art Steves up to flag. So Art's coming up to help us flag this year at Sydney again. So he's on board. He wrote down all the dates, and he said as long as the old man's still ticking, still walking, he'll be there. So I'm excited to have that and have Mr. Steves with us on that season in Sydney. Speaking about old friends, let's welcome in our first guest. It's good to have Dan Eddy along for the ride with us on Tim's Quarter Live, episode 52. Dan, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for being here. It's been a while since we've caught up, and I know you've had a busy off season, not by choice. How are you doing?
No, doing great. I think the last Saturday of the Pro Stock Tour, that Saturday, October the 2nd, for some reason, just working in the backyard, getting ready to go to the tour race, and had a heart attack. And there was a lot of stuff in the press over the last few months about paramedics being late, or paramedics this and that, and we had only told about a dozen people about the heart attack, just close family and friends. And I really thought it was time to maybe put some focus on the paramedics, because it's not the paramedics that are having the issue, it's the system behind the paramedics, with the lack of funding and things like that. So yeah, it was a real miracle for us. They actually came to Fall River from New Glasgow. That was their call. So they had an hour and a half drive in. They were at the end of our street, the ambulance. And when my wife called, it was a false call for them. So they turned left and came into our driveway. So they were here in about 3 minutes, and they said 20 more minutes. The cardiologist told me 20 more minutes, and I would not have made it. So they're not sure what caused it. I have very low cholesterol, and I had the blood pressure of a 20-year-old, they tell me. But, it was close to my second vaccine shot, so I always wondered about that. But it was a clot, and it had closed off one of my main arteries, and rushed me up in the OR and put a stent in, and all was good.
You're all good to go now, though, right?
All good. They told me I'd live a long and healthy life. So just a little bit of diet change. So it's a hard way to lose 15 pounds, I can tell you that. But I'm looking forward to this summer and getting out to the races, and really puts a new meaning to friendships, friendships and family. And when you're laying in the ambulance and they're getting you to sign forms in case you don't make it, it really changes your perspective on a lot of things.
Now, Tony Leonard was on here last week and says he has his workout regimen, whatever, and he's ready to hop back in a race car. So now with everything going on, you're ready to hop back in, right?
Well, actually, it's funny you used to say that, because last spring I bought a new driving suit before I moved back from Calgary, because we were going to do a bucket list race. I wanted to race against Brad at some point. And at that point, Dwayne McKay, who the Brad drives for, had 2 cars. So the intent was to do a regular show at 660. So I still have the suit, and he now has a second car. So we'll see what happens this summer. I'm really looking forward. It's been a long time since I've been in a car, but hopefully it's like riding a bike, right?
Well, exactly. A couple of laps, and you'll be back in it. How long has it been since you've been in a race car?
Well, the last time it was 2005, actually, but we had a lot of laps, thousands of laps, really, at Scotia Speedway and at 660 and some other tracks, even Petty, when we did the on-track driving experience. So we had over 2,000 customers through that whole deal, and some of them went on to be champions in the modified ranks. So we had a lot of fun with that. We were looking at pictures the other day. We have hundreds and hundreds of pictures and videos of some of the customers that we had, and so fun to see all those smiles on the faces and get a chance for people to experience something they normally never would. So, that was a lot of fun. So, I'd like to make some laps just for the fun of it. It's funny, when we bought we bought the late model down in North Carolina, kind of a bucket list thing for me was to practice or run at Hickory Motor Speedway. So we spent several days there practicing in the late model. And back then, Brad was about the same height as me, so everything fit. And the crew, that's since changed. So the crew would often say, "Daddy, you want to take it out for a drive?" I really had no interest, because, and I think most of the dads will attest to this, is when you have a son or a daughter that's out there racing, it's just as much or more joy watching them compete and working on the cars and helping them succeed than it is really you driving. So I never did get that Hickory drive.
Well, I'm sure there's always an opportunity if you're down here at some point to make that happen. We're live and interactive with Dan Eddy tonight. Drop us a question or a comment on Facebook, and keep Mr. Langell over there busy this evening. So for those that don't know, for the maybe the newer generation fans, how did you get your start in racing?
Well, it started back in Mr. Alexander's Seabreeze Raceway in Lawrencetown. It's kind of a funny story. They tease me about it now, but I was probably 5 or 6 years old, and my dad, actually, I remember crawling through the grass to get into the track, and I remember saying to my dad, "Dad, why are we crawling through the grass when everybody else is going in that gate over there?" And he said, "I'm a bricklayer, not a doctor. Keep crawling." So my first race was a freebie. Sorry about that, the Alexanders. But when I saw those guys driving those hot rods around, that was it for me. And when I was 16, I had a street trail bike. I used to go to high school not far from Lawrencetown. about 15 minutes. And on my lunch hours, I would go down there in the spring and just drive laps and laps and laps around that track. And, if I ever had a fell off, nobody knew I was there. So it would have been a good place to probably pack her in right there. But, then I got into mini stocks in 1983. I bought my first car from Ron Heffler. And, in 1979, we raced at Atlantic Speedway and at Onslow on the same day. And we won Rookie of the Year at Atlantic Speedway. That was the last year they were open. And we won a bunch of features in that mini stock, number 72 at Onslow. I think 17 races in total in 1 year. And had the opportunity to go to Petty with it. The first race at Petty was open. We raced Riverglade the night before. We won that race and went to, but I kind of squeezed the guy in the last lap to win that race, and he didn't forget it. So I have a videotape. The next day they opened up Petty, and I was leading the race by quite a bit, and there was 4 or 5 laps to go, and I noticed going into turn 1 that this guy was backing his car off the trailer for the first time of the day, and he actually came out on the racetrack and hit his head on and took us out of that one. But we still ended up finishing second with the kind of some smoke coming off the front wheels. But yeah, some good memories, lots of fun traveling with the crew, and there's nothing like racing family, really. Like, I really enjoyed coming back from Calgary this summer, being at the track.
You mentioned going up and down the road, and we're starting to see that now with some of the Legends teams where they race Friday night in Halifax and they go somewhere else on Saturday. And I'm sure we're going to see a lot of that with some of those sportsman teams that do the Maritime All-Star Sportsman Series. But for you guys back in the day, it was kind of old hat. It's kind of just, go to one racetrack and then head up the road to the other one, right?
Yeah, well, it's funny. A lot of people, when we got into the Pro Stock, I sold the car in 1984 because we got married and I bought a lot, a piece of land. I actually sold the car to Wayne Smith. It was his first mini stock. And so we were out of it for a couple of years. And then 1993, I believe it was, or 92, I think it was actually, I sponsored Mike McKenzie for a couple of races. Well, that was a mistake because I ended up going to the track and, being involved again. And then we did the Moosehead Grand Prix, I believe, with the car I bought from Derek Steves in 92. And then we found out after several years of trying that my wife was pregnant with our first child, my daughter. So we sold that car and ended up staying and building a house with that, towards a house with that money. And Scott Fraser actually bought that car, and it became his first Pro Stock. And he had great success with it, more success obviously than maybe I did. And then in 94, we got back in it. That was the year, actually, my wife was pregnant with Bradley, and we ended up getting her in the Ford tent at the Moosehead Grand Prix at Shearwater, and they had a golf cart on standby because the race was, I think, in early July. Brad was born July 12th. And so they were nervous that she was going to have, go into labor. And we finished third in that race at the Moosehead Grand Prix. And that really opened some doors to Ford. And a lot of people ask me, why did you get in? Why did you race a Ford? Well, because nobody else was. And GM Goodwrench was sponsoring the series. They sponsored, some of the races on TSN. And when I approached Ford over the phone and sent them a proposal, they said, absolutely not. Not interested in sponsoring anyone in Atlantic Canada. So I took that as a maybe. And I actually bought a new suit and bought a plane ticket. And I went up to Oakville, Ontario, and sat in the lobby of Ford Canada. And I asked the receptionist if the head of business development, Mr. Bob Knowles, was in that day. She said yes. I said, does he ever come down from his office? Yes, he does, for lunch to the cafeteria. And I said, would you point him out to me? So after about 2 hours of sitting, she pointed him out. And when I stood up, the middle button of my suit popped off and rolled right to his feet. And he said, yeah, I think this is yours. And I told him who I was. He said, well, I'll give you that much. And he said, let me eat my lunch. You come up to my office and you got 15 minutes to tell me why you and not the 1,500 proposals that are laying on my desk floor, on my floor. So we were able to convince them. GM had sponsored the series. They had some television races. I was going to be the only Ford, and that led us to the number one, because back then they had the Ford Quality Job 1 slogan. And I said, I can get the one. And they said, let's do this. So that got us into the Pro Stock Series and competed there for a couple of years, 3 years on the Quality Care bid.
We're going to come back to the Pro Stocks, but before we go to Dylan Langell, I know he'd be remiss if I didn't ask about the Moosehead Grand Prix and how neat was that to run through the streets of Halifax and do the road racing. And I know there's a lot of NASCAR talk now about moving to a street course and putting those big heavy stock cars on a street course. How cool was it from a U perspective to kind of do that around Halifax?
Probably the most fun I ever had racing, especially going by the police station on Citadel Hill at 100 miles an hour. That was probably a lot of fun. And really learned a lot. We blew an engine in that race, so we didn't finish well. And but when we went back in '94, we had the Ford, we had a Ford motor in it, and we were ready to go. And it was raining a little bit, so it was misty. And for some reason that suited me, and maybe less wheel hop, I don't know. But I ended up passing a lot of cars and almost finished second, finished third. And that really led us into a lot of things. And you talk about, Tim, about going up and down the road. I mean, you know, back then we were doing the NASCAR series, and then we jump in the car, you know, at midnight. We work on the car all week, like every racer does. Then at midnight we would leave Dartmouth. We would drive till 7:30 in the morning and have breakfast at Dyes Arts in Bangor. We would go to Oxford Plains and practice all that day in the scorching hot sun, and then we'd get a few hours sleep and go back the next day and do things like the Oxford 250. You know, so and we went down, I think, 3 times, made that race twice, and finished 12th in 1 year.
It's always great to hear the stories coming up and down the road, and especially those drivers, because it's seen with Ashton Tucker and Cole Butcher and a couple of others to do that cross border trip. But hopefully, with all this COVID out of the way, that the border restrictions become a little easier and we can see a little more of that. Mr. Langell, what do you got for Dan Eddy?
I'll say firstly, Tim, we shouldn't have had 3 guests on the show because I think we just had one with Dan here.
Hold on, Paul. Can we go a little longer than 2 hours then if we need to? Okay, go ahead.
Dan, it's great to have you on here. Glad that hear that you're back on the mend and getting ready to get back behind the wheel, which is pretty exciting. And I guess we'll dive right into that because Chris Hughes says, "Ooh, I want to race the comeback race."
Yeah, you know, Chris is a great guy, real good friend, and always enjoyed racing against Chris and his dad. You know, I remember his dad as being very much like my dad, very involved. You know, my dad's 90 years old, and last year was really the first year he couldn't go to the races. So it's all about family, and Chris is one of those competitors that I always respected, had a lot of respect for him and his family and his team, and still do.
Greg Stewart's watching, and he says, "Glad everything turned okay, Dan, and that you're on the mend." Greg's another guy who liked that Moosehead Grand Prix, but one of the Maritime racing legends. Any memories pop out racing against Greg?
Probably one of the best drivers I certainly ever raced against. And back when I raced, you had Bobby Ewell, and you had, you know, the Frasers, and you had Greg Seward, and you had a lot of big hitters back then. I remember the first race we went to Riverside. We only had a landscape trailer and a jack, but no jack stands. And I remember saying to the guy parked next to me, "How do you set these things up?" And he said, "Yeah, all the best with that." So we had to learn from the beginning. But Greg was one of the smoothest drivers really we ever saw in Atlantic Canada, and Mr. Consistent. You know, where did Greg Seward come from? But 20 laps to go, he's leading the race. You know, and saved his stuff, and really have a lot of respect for Greg. As a matter of fact, Greg was in a pretty bad wreck at Scotia Speedway. I think it was in Bob Riley's car where he took a real bad hit and really hurt his back. And I know he was wanted to get back on the mend and get back in a car again. And I had to go to a conference in Las Vegas. And it was the first time I ever let somebody drive my car. And it was the quality care car. And I called Greg and I said, "Greg, I'd like you to get the seat." And I'll never forget, I don't know who was more nervous, him or I, but I remember getting a call from my crew about lap 50. And I said, "How's he doing?" And they said, "He's leading the race." And I thought, okay, now I got some work to do when I get back. But I have a lot of respect for Greg.
You know, with you guys enjoying the street racing, and you both ran at the different Moosehead Grand Prix, which one did you prefer? Did you prefer the city streets or Shearwater Airport?
I preferred the one I finished third at. So that was a Moosehead Grand Prix. It was a little bit more, it was flat, certainly. I think more technical, and this is where the guys like Greg Seward and Bobby Ewell and Scott Fraser did so well, and Mike McKenzie as well. You know, they raced a very technical course at the Citadel, or at around the Citadel Hill. That would certainly be probably the better track for sure. I didn't have great success there, but those guys sure did.
Looking through the comment section here, Roger Sanford wrote, "Glad you're on the mend. Watched you a lot over the years." Blake Collicott wrote, my driver, Greg Proud, always wanted to do a street race or a road course race. Tim, what are the chances of getting a street course race for the Pro Stock Tour in 2022?
I'm not sure about the Pro Stock Series or the Pro Stock Tour, but I know there is an East Coast Mini Stock Tour race there scheduled. So for those guys that want to hop in, and I know there's already a couple of those upper class drivers that are kind of circling that mid-July weekend on the schedule to kind of go out and do it. So Dylan, it might not be a Pro Stock race, but there is an opportunity for somebody that wants to hop behind the wheel.
Yeah, it could be. Maybe Sean Pierce, he's watching right now, but he's wondering, Dan, what was your favorite race that you raced?
Boy, that's a good question. Another guy I respect a lot is Sean Pierce. You know, they kind of went away and went back to sportsman racing, but really with not a lot of fanfare. And I miss that because those guys really, really contributed to the tour over the years. They were always there, just, great family again. I think my best race that I enjoyed the most, I think it was 1999. I finished second to the late great Scott Fraser in the IWK 250. And, Scott and I were friends, and I remember, standing on the front stretch, getting the trophy and all that stuff. And I saw a piece of fiberglass in his right rear tire, and his tire was going flat. And I remember him joking and saying, "Hey, Dan, 10 more laps, buddy." And, just a great competitor, and to be able to even be in the same lap with him back then was exciting. But that was a big one for us. We had a great year in '99 with some great runs, some top 3 finishes, and that was a fun year. But I would say that IWK 250.
One more for me, and then I'll throw it back to the boys here. But Dan, I remember back in the summer, I was wearing the Dale Jarrett Quality Care shirt, and you said, "Hey, that's my shirt," and we were talking about the Ford stuff, and you're talking the story about going up to Ontario, meeting with the Ford people. But how cool is it to be with Ford in the mid to late 90s? You've got your good wrench cars and MassCar that look like Dale Earnhardt's, but then you've got that Dale Jarrett paint scheme, and just how involved the sponsors and all the manufacturers were into in the sport at the time. Was there a lot of promotional products that had Dan Eddy's face on it back in the day?
Yeah, there was actually. There was more than that than there was cash. But we had uniforms for the crew and uniforms for me and decals for the trailer and all those things. And some really interesting stories behind that. When they told me, when I met with that gentleman, the business development manager in Oakville, he said, "Yeah, we'll do it. But here's the catch. If you can go back and get the Atlantic Mercury dealers to sponsor you, we'll match whatever they give." Now, his thought was they're not going to sponsor this guy. So I went back and did a full proposal to the Atlantic Mercury dealers, and it was presented at their annual meeting, and it didn't pass. And John Quinn Timothy, who was the chairman, I believe, at the time, he owned Wood Motors Ford, he kind of shook his head no, like he was disappointed. And somebody in that meeting, and I found out later who it was, said, "John, why are you shaking your head?" And he said, "Look, man, we're sponsoring a golf tournament for $30,000. We don't sell golf balls, we sell cars. This guy just needs a little bit of help." And they said, "Well, let's take another vote." And they voted again, and it passed by 1 vote. So when I called Ford Canada and said, "Hey, I got a little bit of money. You said you'd match it." He said, "Oh my God, I guess we got to do this now." So I remember the day you talk about some merchandising things. My wife called me at work and she said, "There's a tractor trailer backing down our street, which was a dead end." I said, "A tractor trailer? What's in it?" She said, "I don't know." She called me back and she said, the guy opened the back door and there's 4 pallets of stuff. And it was batteries and windshield washer and window washer and cleaners and things like that. So they had a lot of stuff they gave us for sure. But I was one of 3 drivers in Canada that had that sponsorship, and I really did a lot with them. One of the things I'm most proud of in racing is the fact that we brought the Racing Against Drugs program to Atlantic Canada. We got to go to a lot of schools. Mike McKenzie came with me to some of those, and I remember one particular case in Muscataubbit. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but they had a slot car track and they had a big oval track that they used to let the kids drive, but they had to stop at stations to get to that. So they had to stop at a big table that had drugs in it. It was cocaine and LSD and all these things, even little tattoos that people would give kids in schoolyards to lick, and the tattoos actually were laced with cocaine. So we would talk to the kids about that, but I'll never forget one little boy. He was in grade 6, and when they blew the whistle to go to the next station, he just stood there. And I had my uniform on. I was standing next to an RCMP officer, and I said, "Is everything okay, young man?" He said, "No." He said, "When I come home every night, my mom and dad are high on drugs, and I don't know what to do." So I looked at the police officer and said, "Now what?" And he said, "Let's bring them over and we'll get some counseling." But just to have that kind of impact meant a lot more to me, honestly, than trophies. But yeah, we went to a lot of schools all over Atlantic Canada, and a lot of snowstorms towing that race car so we could talk to those kids.
If you have any questions for Dan, leave them in the comment section.
It's always great to see that sort of thing come full circle, and we have some race teams that do embrace that other side of the sport. But I think that's kind of, I don't want to say it's a lost art in the sport where it is right now in 2022, but it seems like there's some of that maybe disconnect with some of those teams that could be out there and might hear the story tonight and might inspire them a little bit.
Well, I think it's a big part of it. I know for us, I mean, I couldn't do it on my history because I didn't have it. So, really had to dig deep and get some sponsors. And now there are some great teams in Atlantic Canada that really do well with the sponsorship. And I think of the Butchers, for example, just proud to see them. But we had our battles on the racetrack from Bandelows and Legends, but to see those kids going down and racing in Florida is just does so much for Atlantic Canada. And I think too, a lot of times drivers and teams get discouraged. You get 150 no's before you get a yes, in a sponsorship, and it's tough to do, but it's even tougher to keep them. In a national sponsorship, it was even, it was a lot more because there was a lot more expected, like trips to dealers and things where, you don't budget for that stuff. So I think that, one of the things that we could do better as a sport is maybe do some clinics and classes on how to write sponsorship proposals and how to draft them and how to present ourselves now on social media and, bring more attention to our sport locally. Because back then we had TSN, we had GM Goodwrench as the series sponsor and Quality Care and, NTN Bearings and many other big sponsors. And we need to draw those back, especially now because COVID left a gap for our sport.
And for those that are sitting out there, and we're talking about the heyday, and you're saying, okay, well, they're national sponsors, the AC Delcos and the Skoll and all these other ones that were there in the late 90s, early 2000s that supported our sport out here. For those that you see it every day on Facebook with those, trying to get some sponsors and trying to beat the ground and whatever else to try to get some money for them to go racing. For you that's been down that road, what's the best piece of advice you can give to some of those teams that are trying to get that sponsorship money?
Well, be prepared and be persistent and be ready and be prepared to do what you said you were going to do. So it's okay to go and say, look, I'm going to show my car 5 times a year. I'm going to go to this location, but the sponsor is actually looking for a return on investment. When I worked for Snap-on, we used to sponsor Dale Earnhardt's uniform for $3.5 million for a sticker, for a stitching on the top of his uniform and a very small decal on his car. Now, what the president of Snap-on would ask us is, okay, we'll give that $3.5 million and we make, essentially 50% profit on our tools. So you have to sell me $6 million worth of goods to pay for that $3 million. They wanted a return on investment, and so do the small sponsors. And right now, I want to thank Ken Cunning for his years of service on the tour. And it's going to be exciting too to see Dan McLeod come on. Dan certainly has some sales experience, but COVID's left a gap for the tour. And it's got me somewhat concerned because of COVID, the tracks had to do their own thing, which is wonderful that they were able to do that. But they began to, create some big shows with some big purses. And, do we need the tour as much? So I think we need to continue to build value in the tour, draw new sponsors to it. We all have our part to do with that, whether we raced before or we race now. And the more sponsorship, the more attention to the sport, the more it's going to grow, because the Maritime Pro Stock Series has great value from a fan perspective. We just got to get them back, and we got to show value to the tracks.
Absolutely. Before we go to Denver, we kind of had this conversation earlier in the week, actually, when we were talking about pro stock races. And there's a couple of conflicts with some open races, but you had those 12 tour races. You got the Atlantic Championships in Shediac. You got the 250 in Fredericton, a couple of open races up at 660. Petty's got 3 extra races on top of their tour races this year. It's like 17, 18, 19 weekends these guys can go all the way through the season. What's your take on it? I know from talking to some of the teams, they say it's too much. There's got to be a happy medium somewhere. You've been around, you've seen this for so many years. What are your thoughts going into this 2022 season, at least on that pro stock side?
Well, again, I'm somewhat concerned, and the reason I'm concerned is right now, look, I appreciate the track owners. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be racing. So we need to bring value to them, and they need to make what they make, and then we need to be able to reward the drivers and crews that put on the tour races. And in order to do that, it's going to take a lot of work to draw new sponsors and new attention to the sport. So I can't emphasize that enough. When new sponsors come into the tour, the reason I got Quality Care wasn't because I ever won a pro stock race. It was because GM Goodwrench was in the tour. So that was really the decision, because well, GM's there, it's on TV, maybe we should be there. So that's what we need more of. And what I would do is begin, if I was a young driver now looking out, is don't be afraid to call some of the bigger companies, just be prepared. I know when we were doing some races in the US, I called hundreds of sponsors. Brad was just a kid, so he wasn't going to get on the phone. He was 14, 15 years old. And I remember one, Samuel Meadows, he said, I think I want to do this. And I actually said, what did you say? Because I was so used to getting a no. So just remember that 150 no's can lead to one yes. That could be, lead you to more success, because it sure is expensive these days running these cars. But I really want to see our tour build more value. And I look forward to Dan McLeod and some of the things he can do, and get back to filling those grandstands and those campgrounds again and burn those masks.
Absolutely. The racing product is there. We just have to build around it and keep it strong as it is. Denver, what do you got for Dan Eddy?
Well, Dan, thanks for joining us on the show tonight. I want to ask you the first question I have for you. You've been around the sport for a while. We know how the money has changed things, but looking past that, what's the biggest change you've seen in the sport of racing throughout your career?
Well, on a local level or on a larger level?
Either
Local?
or both.
I think that's a very good question, Denver, because one of the things back when the NASCAR Tour was going it was a great series. We had a lot of fun in it, but we were approached by Cecil Vance and Harry Poole back then, and I'm forgetting the other guy's name, Conrad. But anyway, there were three guys that really wanted to take over the tour, and we knew that it was a good business move to do that. Now, Scott Fraser, myself, Mike McKenzie, John Fleming, I think a few others. We said we got to do something different here. So Randy Black and Joe Rui back then started the International Pro Stock Series. I was with Snap-on at the time, so we sponsored that for about $50,000, I think it was. I can't remember exactly. But we began to support that tour and not go to as many NASCAR races because we wanted to bring attention that we need this NASCAR tour to be run like a business. And now that ruffled some feathers. Did we do it the right way? Probably not. But when you look back, we really see what happened after that when the tour began to get private ownership. Even though we took a lot of heat, to make all that stuff happen, and it became the Maritime Pro Stock Series, it was pretty cool to see Wayne Smith the next year get a check for $10,000. And I think then, Cecil Vance especially, like my hat's off to him. If it wasn't for him, and John Chisholm and the Chisholm family, and Wayne Smith and his wife, and many other, Jerry Campbell back in the day for building, a Petty, and Riverglade Speedway. It wasn't for those guys and Sydney Speedway, there wouldn't be any racing. So that's probably the biggest change is we went from, a not-for-profit group into a full-blown, business-owned venture, which I think has helped grow the sport. If you look, we went from a small car count. We started promoting crate engines. We said, look, we can't afford these $50,000 engines, and so the tour went to crate engines, and then the car count exploded.
What would you say is your most memorable moment throughout your career?
I think this might sound cliche. I think the one with certainly that little boy at the Racing Against Drugs deal was big for me. I think the Moosehead Grand Prix, the IWK 250, but I don't think I got as much reward as when I first saw my son strap into a go-kart. And remember the very first race, they said, look, tell him he's got to stay out of the way and put an X on his helmet. He's going to get run over. He's got to start at the back. And he was nervous. I was nervous. And that day he won both heats and his feature. So I said, hey, this is going to be kind of fun. So I think watching my kids, my daughter's successful in her business. My son was successful in racing. I think just watching them gave me the most joy.
I want to ask you a little bit more about, Brad's career progressing up into a ride on the Maritime Pro Stock Tour. And I think Tim can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he got a podium or two that year. He had a strong run in the 250. What was it like watching him find success on the tour?
Well, it was exciting for me because we had older gear. Like I bought a car from Texas for $5,000, and we brought it back and spent about $15,000 on it. I included the motor. And, the next thing we're running in the top three, finished second in the International in Petty. And then had strong runs, was doing real well in the IWK 250. And unfortunately, Matt Kraft had made him a little mistake. He apologized for it, ran over him and took us out. But, I think certainly, there's a lot of great kids out there that can drive, but Brad's a wheel man, and I appreciate what he does on and off the track too. So, yeah, it was fun to watch that progression. And now he's racing for Dwayne McKay. I raced for Dwayne. When I raced, I did 19 races one year for Dwayne. We had great success, a lot of top three finishes, and we had a win that was taken away from us, but our fault. And so now he's racing. Actually, Brad's racing for him, and they're getting ready to. They have a newer chassis this year. Going to put some new gear on it, so we'll see what happens. But boy, these new race cars are about $120,000. They tell me.
They're definitely not cheap, and I can only imagine with what we're seeing now that it'll be even more expensive when the season rolls around. But I'm going to throw it over to Dylan because I see Dylan. There's a couple more questions coming through on social media for Dan.
Yeah, there's a few things piling in here, and I guess I'll go to Sean Johnson's question because Denver kind of half brought it up there. I mean, it's no secret racing is not a poor man's game. It's expensive, but Sean's wondering, and I guess partly with you, Dan, helping Brad out and everything, and just as a racer, how concerned are you about the current price of gas and, We don't know where it's going to end. Is it going to drop soon? How is that, do you think, is going to affect the budget for race teams? I mean, did you have an allotment for gas back in the day? I mean, gas was way cheaper back then, but did you have, hey, we have, $2,000 allotted for our gas money?
Yeah,
we had go ahead.
Yeah, we had a budget, for fuel, but it's interesting because back then we were paying $8.50 a gallon for race fuel and people thought we were nuts. But guess how much high test is today? So, today it's $8.50 a gallon. A lot of people lose sight of that when you do the math at 4.3 on a liter. So we're paying over $8 a gallon, the same as what we used to pay for race fuel. I think fuel's certainly an expense. The nice thing about the Pro Stock Tour is it is somewhat condensed in Atlantic Canada or in the Maritimes. I'd love to see the tour make a trip to Newfoundland. But it's the cost of the cars themselves. Like just for fun, a few months ago, I priced up a new chassis in the U.S. and it was $70,000 US with nothing in it, just the body on it, no lead, no shocks. So you bring it back and you put all the fittings and pieces on it, and a motor and a transmission. You are well over $100,000. And in order for the drivers and teams to be compensated, the purses are going to have to increase. The tracks can't provide any more purses because they don't have the sponsorship perhaps. So it's going to take the industry working together, tracks and the tour, to grow the sport enough where we can start to get those big dollars back in again.
How do you think that's going to hurt the little guy, like your mini stock drivers, maybe legend drivers to a point? Do you think that's also going to mess with? It has to mess with their budgets too, right?
Well, it sure does. That's a very good question, Dylan, because I think as an older racer, I'm very concerned about that. There's some great young men and young women that are driving these race cars today that have all the talent in the world that could compete at the highest level in NASCAR. There's no doubt about that because we went down there and did it. So they can compete, but they just don't have those dollars. It's more important today if you want to grow in the sport. Well, let me back up a little bit. I remember coaching Bantam hockey, and it was house league Bantam. And I remember Dad screaming at every game. He was screaming and yelling at the ref. And one day I took him aside and I said, "Your son is 14. He's playing house league. You think he's going to make the NHL?" And he said, "No." I said, "Then why are you yelling? Just let him have some fun." So if it's the purpose of the dad and the mom and to have their kids out there and have fun, I'd encourage you just to have fun and be careful not to overspend. But if you want to go further than that, begin to preparing the right proposals and the right social media reach and the right marketing program, that when that kid is 12, 13, 14, 15, you start to draw the attention of some sponsorship. So it depends where you want to be. If it's just you want to go to the races, have some fun and have a barbecue, hey, you don't need a whole lot. But if you're going to progress to the level of the Pro Stock Series or the Pass Series, Car Series, you need some serious dollars. And if you don't have that personally, you better start working on a marketing program.
One more here from Facebook, and it's a comment here from Kent Corbett. And he wrote, "Insurance companies charge more for a company if there is a name on the race car," when he's wondering why and wondering if smaller companies back out. I've never heard of insurance companies charging more just because of a sponsorship. But can you allude to that, Dan? Is that true? Or?
Well, the only thing I can remember is having a guy over at my house when I was racing the Ford, and he was selling me life insurance. And he tried pretty hard. And at the very end, we were ready to sign everything up. And he said, "Do you skydive?" And I said, "No." "Do you scuba dive?" "No." "Do you race cars?" I said, "Yeah, every weekend." He just closed his book. Oh. And there was no insurance on the life insurance side. But no, that's the only experience I ever had with it.
Okay, back to you, Tim. It's interesting. It's very interesting of the conversations we're getting into here tonight.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, but I've never heard of that either. When you're doing a budget and you're doing marketing and advertising, I have never heard of an insurance company asking why are you sponsoring something because of that. But there's always at least one story in every crowd, I'm sure. Dan, obviously, Brad has had some great success in the Legend Car here the last couple of seasons, but I want to bring in another name that recently won the Maritime League of Legends Tour Championship, and that's Craig McDonald, because I remember standing on the front straightaway with you and Craig about 10 years ago after Gary passed, and talking about how Craig is going to come up through the ranks and develop as a race car driver. He won that race at 660 finally last season. How special was it to see him come up through the ranks and have the success that he's had?
Oh, it was exciting for me. I mean, he's his mom is my first cousin, and I've known Craig since he was a child, and it's been a tough go. When you lose your dad at a young age, you need everybody around you that can give you support I think one of the things I'm really proud of is to see Brad and some of Craig's other friends, Danny Chisholm and several of his friends, Scott or Corey Hall, really rally around Craig and support him the way Scott McLean, support him the way he needed to be. But boy, that was a fun night when he. It's a fun night when you see your own child win, but it's really fun too when you see someone like Craig who's been in your family for a long time.
Absolutely. We'll make last call on social media now. We've got Dan for a few more minutes. Mike Duskey is waiting in the wings to come on. And I guess I'll ask you the loaded question, Dan. You've been around this sport for years, 5, 10, 15 years down the road. Where do you see this sport going?
Well, it's the unknowns that pop up like a COVID, which really throws a loop into everything. And boy, I'll tell you, the track's really hustled the last 2 years to survive. And we certainly owe them a great debt of gratitude. I remember what it was like to be racing at Onslow Speedway, and they announced it, or at Atlantic Speedway in '79, and it's going to close. It's like, now what? And then Onslow stayed open. But if it wasn't for these track owners working their butts off like 24/7, 365 days a year, we wouldn't be able to do this. So I think in Atlantic Canada, if we want to see this very successful, we have to work towards getting certainly live stream. We have to live stream more events and get a greater audience, and use that live stream feed to contests and special incentives to maybe draw people to the tracks through that live streaming event. And ultimately, it'd be nice to have a race or two on TSN. When we had the TSN races, I can't even tell you the excitement that was in the pits. We were going to be on television. Every car was perfect. Every crew member was dressed in a uniform. And, good sponsorship draws the best in all of us, because we want to perform. So I think as far as the tour is concerned, we really need to support their sponsorship side of it and do whatever we can to help Tara and the others to reach into new markets. Especially, COVID gave a lot of corporations an excuse to say no, and now we have to show them that we've got a great product, and we have to show them that they can say yes, and we have to give them a return on their investment. So the days of just taking a sponsorship check and jumping in your truck and going to the races are over.
And I know COVID gave us some good things. It gave us some big crowds at Petty. It gave us some big crowds at 660, but they were kind of allowed to with the restrictions that they were given in New Brunswick. The other thing that it's given us is a tire shortage now. Obviously, there's been a couple of races around here. Carolina Pro Late Model Series canceled their show in Hickory this week because they couldn't find tires. Where do you see that thing going, and what do we have to do to try to adapt around that to try to get a full season in?
Well, the world's in a mess right now. It's a tough spot to be in. There's a lot of supply chain shortages. I know we're waiting for some parts to come out of the U.S. for some pro stock stuff that Brad's doing with Dwayne, and they're backlogged 3 or 4 months. So it's going to take that supply chain issue, to catch up. It's going to take better leadership, and I know I'll get in trouble on this one. It's going to take better leadership in Ottawa and better leadership in the U.S. To turn this thing around. And right now, I don't like the way we're going as a country. I've gotten involved in politics when I was in the West. I sat on the board for Deputy Speaker of the House there, and I'm involved now when I came back with 2 MLAs here. And, whenever we talk, when we're talking non-politics or non-business, I'm always talking about racing. Even today, when I had one of the meetings, it was like, let me tell you a little bit about our sport, and I never get tired of talking about Atlantic Canada, because I'm telling you, you can go to any track any night, got some of the best drivers, guys and girls, that can compete anywhere in North America and win. So we just got to get that message out. So we need better leadership in our countries.
Absolutely, we do, and hopefully it all helps us at the end of the day to do this sport that we all love and be able to go to the racetrack every weekend. And it's coming up quick. I think there's 60-something days until the first race at 660. I know Victoria Kane is watching, and she's looking forward to having you back on the racetrack. So has there been any talks of when it might end up being? Is there any other talk about that?
I told Brad that since the heart attack, if I got to build my own, I'm going to do that because I really always wanted to get out there with him, and he always teases me about waving as he goes by. So, but I just want to be able to say, especially after the heart attack, it's like it's something I always wanted to do, and hopefully I'll find myself in a pro stock somewhere to be able to make some laps and Brad and I get out and high five each other. That'd be kind of fun.
And if it's at 660, I will almost guarantee you that we will drag Wade Wilson out of retirement to be there for that, because I know he would love to see that as well. We've covered a lot of ground here in the last hour or so. Is there anything else that we haven't covered before we move on to Mike Duskey?
I just want to thank the 3 of you for what you're doing for the sport. I mean, when we were racing, there was none of this. So the more focus that you can bring every week, to the sport and discussing tonight's schedule, so the fans are aware. I really appreciate all that you guys do, not just on this live stream, but for live streaming the events and also for announcing the events. And please keep up the good work.
We appreciate it. And there's always a microphone in Scotia. So whenever you want to hop up and join me on a Friday night, you're more than welcome to. With no divisions off, it gets harder to find co-hosts. So you're welcome anytime.
Something I've always wanted to do is be a pit reporter. So hold on to that mic.
Absolutely. This has been fun. Thank you for joining us, Dan. And I'm sure we'll catch up before the racing season starts.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
That's Dan, Eddy, and Denver. Another thing coming back, speed sports back with all these restrictions lifting and everything else. Radical speed sport coming up in April.
Yes, Tim. It's been 3 years. 2019. We have to go back to for the last speed sport. It's been a while, so I know everyone will be anxious to get back. It's going to be. I said to you, this could be the busiest speed sport ever, with restrictions being lifted and the hiatus due to COVID. So definitely going to be exciting. And Tim, do you have anything to announce for speed sport yet, or are we kind of keeping things under the radar?
We're going to be there. I don't know exactly in what capacity, who, when, what, where. I talked to Joe actually this morning, trying to iron things out, making sure everything's good to go, but we will be at Speed Sport. I just don't know in what capacity. April 22nd to 24th. And the cool thing is Dave Kindig's back from Bitch and Rides, Kindig Designs. He was there a couple of years ago. Good to have Dave back, and I'm sure there's going to be more announcements as we move forward and go on. Obviously, we just talked about the monster truck deal at the top of the show, where the U.S. border is still closed. Trying to get trucks back and forth. It's the same deal. We've got there's still some testing policies at the border to work around and what have you, and everything else. So we're still working on that, and I'm sure Joe is still working on that as well. But I told Joe we have to get him on the show at some point to make this thing all happen and kind of tie everything in together. But Speed Sports back. Mark it on your calendar, April 22nd to 24th. We may have one more announcement coming up that has to do with Moncton, has to do with April. It's not set in stone yet, so I can't let the cat out of the bag anymore, but it's another event that may be returning. So keep that in mind and put that in the back of your mind. But we're going to move on to our next guest. And this is a guy that I've been trying to get on the show for the last couple of weeks, and it's good to have him on. Pro Stock Rookie of the Year at Oyster Bed Speedways, won a race. He's done about everything in his racing career, from street stocks all the way up. Mike Duskey. Mike, welcome to the show.
Hey, guys. How are you?
So far, so good. Good to see you. Good to talk to you. How's the winter been?
It's been pretty good.
Looking forward here into this 2022 season, let's look back first. Pro Stock season went fairly well.
Oh, yeah. No, that was probably one of the best years that I've had for quite some time, and I haven't raced back home points-wise for quite some time either.
And with the way this schedule is gone, obviously COVID put us in a little bit of a hole where there was no racing in 2020 at Oyster Bed. So everybody's on a clean slate in 2021. And then, oh, by the way, we're going to throw Darren McKinnon and Dylan Gosby back at you full time on the season. So going into the season, what was your expectations, knowing that there could be some big names coming back to the Speedway?
Yeah, no, it was good to have them back, or have any big name back to come and race at our home track. And anyways, it's just tough competition in that class for sure.
Absolutely. We're live and interactive with Mike Duskey. Be sure to drop us a question or comment, and we'll keep Mr. Langell busy over there. So I guess we'll step back to the start of this whole thing, because you've been involved in this sport for several years. How did you get your start in racing?
Yeah, it all started probably, I've been to the track when I was a kid and stuff like that. And then just being around there with my dad and stuff. And then come in 2005, anyways, it was time to get in something, and we just slammed right into the street stock, and that's what we started doing.
So starting in street stock, what do you remember about those first couple of years racing that thing?
That was when we go back like years ago. There were so many cars. We had, 25 to 30 cars when I first started, and there was, guys that that are older and stuff like that when I was racing. And I don't know, we think we went 3-4 weeks in, and then finally we were able to have speed and stuff and able to start winning races. So.
And you won a lot of races in your street stock career in the first part, and then afterwards, that kind of rebirth sort of deal where you were winning all the races here about 5 or 6 years ago. What did you learn about the first couple of years in a street stock that helped you out to win all those races that you did here 4 or 5 years back?
Yeah, it's it's just the stuff that has changed. Like obviously your tire packages have changed, and and then I had like great support when I was coming through and able to race for Jeff Boyle and Matt. And that was the biggest thing for me, was just to understand what the car needed and learned it that way. And then we just started racing in Petty in 2012, and I just picked some races then, and then just started racing kind of for points, and then eventually, and then just had really good success.
You mentioned about those early street stock days and all those names and all those cars that were there. What do you remember about it? Is there any big name that was racing around there at the same time that you kind of have memories with?
Yeah, so like whenever I was racing street stock, like of course you had like your Daryl Ford and Gerald McCory and Kevin Curtis and Donald Richards and stuff like that when I was racing. And I just learned kind of from them. And then when I went late model racing, and of course then you're into bigger names like that again. So that was when John and Hicken just moved out and went pro stock, and then I got in, and then I was racing with like Terry Lenentine and good people like that.
So Daryl Ford is still racing. So you got plenty of years left on your racing career, right?
Yeah, for now, anyways. So
I still see some comments rolling in, and Dylan, do I see Ty over there? Speaking of Mr. McCory,
I had better turn on my microphone.
That's probably a good thing, yeah.
Yeah, Mike, thanks for coming on here tonight. Yeah, Ty's in here, and he says, do you like racing against Animal?
Oh, I like racing with anyone that's a tough competitor, and he's definitely a tough one to race against, and you're going to get that in every class, that someone is, competitive like that.
Mike, as the island will be opening up, as all the maritime provinces are you going to compete in those East Coast International Pro Stock Tour races with the boys and girls from New Brunswick and Nova Scotia as well, or are you just going to stick with the OBS Pro Stock division?
Everything's kind of in the works right yet. After just seeing the thing with Dan and the sponsor thing, that kind of is a big thing for me. Is anyways, I kind of got to kick myself a little bit and get on the sponsor stuff. But as of right now, I think we're going to race home, and then possibly like the 2 pro stock races for the pro stocks here. And then I've always said that ever since I got it, that I want to do, at least attempt to make for the IWK 250. And that's kind of the plan that we're going to do. And maybe the Mike Stevens at Petty. So.
Right on. It's so funny, Tim, in Denver, how we've now really dove into the sponsorship talk tonight. But Mike, coming from the island, you got a good number of pro stock drivers there. But Prince Edward Island only has about 115,000 people and X amount of businesses. Do you find it a bit tougher trying to find those sponsorships since you're kind of battling with the other pro stock drivers when it's in short supply?
Yeah, 100%. Like everyone's trying to find sponsors and stuff like that, and then you don't really want to step on someone else's toes because if they have them or not. But yeah, no, last year I had a good group of people that actually came on and sponsored me. But yeah, no, sponsors where it's at, for sure.
Our good buddy Ashton from Wingnut Productions is in here. He says, "Give us a wave, Denver." There we go. He's also wondering, I don't know if this was directed at Dan or Mike, but I'm going to throw it at Mike here since Dan left. He's wondering, Mike, is there an NASCAR driver that came up through the ranks that you would compare yourself to? So maybe someone you looked up to or something.
Oh, I wouldn't say that I'm that good, but like obviously my favorite has always been Kyle Busch. But
you're a Rowdy fan.
100%.
What do you think about this whole Alex Bowman Rowdy business going on here?
I think, it's just the part of NASCAR, and I think you're going to get that. And, everyone's got their favorites and stuff like that. And, some people don't like Kyle and stuff like that. But anyways, that's just the part of racing.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Have you had any conflicts in your short racing career like Kyle Busch, or not been like your favorite driver?
In my racing?
Yeah, Kyle's been known to be a little bit of a hothead. You don't try and follow him, right?
Oh, I've been in a couple little spurts like that for sure.
I guess we'll leave it at that, Tim.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk about the kind of transition, because you had a couple of transition periods in your racing career in between the street stock I remember you do a little bit of modified racing at some point.
Yep. Yeah. So the modified was just like the knockoff of the pro stock. So.
What do you remember most about those PEI modified days?
Oh, like I think anyone kind of wished that it was still here. It was just kind of, we were the only, it was kind of like a sportsman, but kind of like a pro stock. And I think, most of the guys that are, kind of running the pro stock now, and of course, like Randy and stuff like that, we wish the class would have been able to stay because it was just, good and affordable to do it. But
now Randy's run, I think, 6 different divisions or 8 different divisions or something in the last year. He's had like an identity crisis of his own, and I'm sure he's watching, and I'm sure I'll hear it from him for that. But you moved up to the modified and then back to the street stock. So why the transition in between the two?
I just ran, well, actually, when I ran street stock for 2.5 to 3 years, and then that was when my dad was racing the modified, and then it was just getting too hard because I was smashing up here probably worse than I should have back then. And then it was like, he just came and he's like, the shop's only big enough for one car. He said, one of them's got to go. So I was able to sell my street stock. And then I just handed the money to him and started doing late model racing. So.
And then back to street stock. You mentioned that 2012, 2013 era, and that was when the Petty Raceway was reopening. That's where the Oyster Bed Speedway still had the booming car count, and the car count ebbs and flows, but it was kind of that upturn in street stock, and your name was right at the front of that in those big races, competing for those deals. So, what do you remember about competing for those Petty championships and those big shows?
Yeah, see now, like I think the first time we went to Petty was in 2012, and it's changed a lot. Now you got walls all the way around now. And the first time we went, anyways, didn't really know anyone there, and just a group of us decided to load up the car and go, and had great success. Anyways, finished behind Joey Rodaham there, and finished second in that race. And that's kind of where that this is a track that I like, and that's where we're going to try to run as many races as we can.
And that was when this, obviously, we'll talk about this Maritime Street Stock series from an outside perspective here in a moment, but that's kind of where the street stocks kind of took off for those big races. You have big races at 660. Miramichi started off the grassroots trend about 6 years ago and try to get those. What do you remember most about those street stock big races? And is there one that you still, if you ever get back into street stock, want to scratch off that bucket list?
Yeah, so I'd still love to have a street stock and stuff like that. I couldn't I couldn't win any more races, and I've won a pile of races at my home track and some that I never got credited for because I got caught cheating and stuff like that. But anyways, then went to Petty, and it was a great group of guys racing with, and girls too at that time. And I've won the Mike Stevens race, and I've won the Caleb Dunn. I've won the big street stock show down here. But then the only one that I couldn't scratch off was the international one, and it was just, a parts failure or something like that, or always coming up second.
So if somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, I have a street stock, I'll hand you the keys for the night." You mentioned
100%.
the international. Yeah, well, you mentioned the international. Is there any other thing you want to go to scratch off the bucket list? I know 660's got the Ricky Bobby now. Miramichi's got a couple of big races. Obviously, the Center for Speed's got a couple too. Is there anything besides that international you want to tick off that bucket list?
Oh, it doesn't matter what it is. If I can get in something, I'm getting in it.
There you go. So street stock owners, Mike Duskey's ready to wheel your race car to victory lane, and I know you can, Mike. Before we dive into the pro stock stuff, Denver, what do you have for Mike Duskey?
I have a couple things for Mike. We're going to have some fun. So first of all, Mike, you mentioned that you'll drive any car. Did you drive a light blue car once upon a time? What's the story with that?
The only light blue one would be, would it be Doug? I'm just guessing. I don't know. So
did you drive Michael Cormier's car at Petty one
Oh,
time?
yeah. So that was a pretty big, thing for me. Was just, I think Michael went to race away in Newfoundland and stuff like that. And we got a call from Earl, and to see if I wanted to be able to go and race it. And I think I was going to race mine, and we had some issues or something like that. And anyways, then Earl was teasing me. He's like, "I don't think you'll fit." And I was like, I can fit in anything, so it doesn't matter how big I am. But yeah, no, I had a good, you know, when I first got there, I think we had some problems with the car at the first, and then but yeah, no, come the feature, I had a great race with Logan for sure.
Any pressure jumping into that car? Because Michael won championships, every big race you could think of in that car. Then you get in it. So was there any pressure to go out and perform?
Oh, there's always, you're always gonna have the pressure to get in anyone's car. You don't want to wreck it or something happen. But yeah, no, you know, like there's been a bunch of people that has got in it. Wayne's got in it and won. I've got in it and won, and I think Greenlaw has got in it, and I think he did second, or maybe he got a win with it too. So
I want to ask you about, you mentioned already your big win at PEI was the 100-lap race, Maritime Street Stock Showdown. That was a wild race. You come out on top, and you know, I know Barry likes to have the big trophies in Miramichi, but you walked away with a pretty big trophy that night too. Tell us about that win.
yeah, so like before they ever had the Street Stock Showdown, it was called like the David Lamb back then, and pretty well ever since I've raced, I've always led laps, and you know, got tangled up with someone or got a little hot-headed with someone, but always had great luck. Like we've led laps, and I think the year before the one that I won, I was leading and then had a transmission problem. And then we go back to, I think it was 2008 is the one I won. Luke was there and we were just riding along. And anyways, then Alex got ahead of me, and, you know, I think just anyways, I don't really want, anyways, it was just a racing incident and they happened. And you know, and then when we went back green, I think I led the last 30, and I could definitely see Luke coming for sure. But anyways, a win's a win. As you can get it, you can get it. So
You've mentioned a couple times about being, you know, maybe in a couple altercations. Is there any stories or anything memorable you can tell on the show?
oh, there's some stories for sure. Anyways, but I think like I've had, you know, incidents with like, you know, Kyle McCachran, and I've had it with Mark Claire, which me and Mark are good, and me and Kyle are good, and you know, and I think, you know, me and Jeff McGinnis got in it back then, and but you know, like obviously it's just racing, and you know, you don't want to get anyone hurt or anything like that, so we all got to go to work on a Monday morning. So
Having competed in the street stock class for as long as you did, what does it mean to see this Maritime Street Stock Series deal come out with all the tracks working together, getting the rule books on as close to the same page as they can be, and you know, having 5 big races at the 5 tracks that run street stock, and crowning an overall champion?
I think it's great. You know, me and Jeff Boyle talked about years ago is, you know, if they had a race per track, everyone, and did like the series that they're doing, I think, you know, if you can get the sponsors to do it and help, and, you know, I know like it's tough to travel and stuff like that, but no, it started last year, and it was, you know, a great event for what I could see, and it's obviously, it can only get better.
Absolutely. I'm going to throw it over to Dylan Langell. Dylan, how's social media?
A little slow here, so if you got any questions here for Mike, leave them in the comment section. We got him here for a little bit here. Ty is wondering, is your dad going to race again there, Mike?
My dad's pretty well done. He said that a while ago. I tried to just even put him in like street stock back then, and mentioned about the pro stock, and it just said that that's not for him, because once he gets in it, he'll want to go, but he prefers not to go, and it's even hard for him to go to the track without getting back into it.
What do you think about this 2022 schedule for OBS here? You know, Oysterbed, was it July that it got going last year? Because I was there with the hot rods. It was the end of July there. But, you know, starting that June end, May deal, again, going full tilt. What are your thoughts on that schedule?
Yeah, like, you know, it was, you know, with Robbie and Bill and Gary and Chris, you know, they put the effort in, and, you know, to get back to the racetrack, and we were able to get back, and, you know, and it was good to have that. And, but yeah, no, it's, you know, it's great for anyone to get back to the track, and for any kind of racer and stuff like that. But yeah, it can only get better for the next year.
Oh, here come the comments, and
Yeah,
it's all Islander heavy here.
You just got busy.
That's good. No, busy is good. We'll go right into it here. Blake Collicott's here. He says, had a lot of fun racing with Mike last season with our part-time tour schedule. Racing at home for most of the summer was a nice and good to support our local track during COVID. And that's a big thing too. With the island where they're had a little stricter with the COVID stuff. But when I was there, the place was packed. I mean, you can definitely speak for the fans and how they supported the track, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. And like obviously you always want to race at your home track and have the fans. If you don't have the fans, then what are you racing for? Anyways, I always look. I think it might have been like the last day or something that I raced, and you go and you first pull out in the track and you see the fans and especially the kids. Obviously it's a kids thing, and if you can get the kids into it and get away for like a Saturday, it's fun for the kids. So.
Former guest here on TCM Live, Taylor Albert's watching, and he wrote, "Ever see your daughter getting in behind the wheel?"
I would say for sure.
It'll be a family affair.
Yeah, for sure.
Jeff McInnes is here, former guest also on TCM Live. I got to click on see more because there's a lot of comments here, a lot of words here. He wrote, "The only thing I'd say about Mike is this. We are like brothers. We have had so many great times and a few bad ones, but this guy has taught me so much about street stocks. Without him, the 29 would be nothing. He pushes me to be a better driver. Week after week, I owe him so much. Couldn't ask for a better friend." Some kind words there from Jeff, right?
Oh, no, yeah. We go back a couple of years ago. We had our issues and stuff like that. And then, you just look at the life part of it, things you just kind of got to move on and let life go. But yeah, no, we had great luck last year helping him and stuff like that. And I think pretty well anyone knows, street stock wise or anything like that, I try to help anyone, even with the pro stock. If I got anything to help anyone, I'll help.
If someone there, Mike, is looking to get into street stock racing, what would be some first key points of advice you would give to someone, whether they're transitioning from mini stock racing or just diving feet first right into it without any real prior experience?
Yeah, obviously if that's what you want to do, I've had a couple, come and ask me, and we've got a couple people into the street stock and stuff like that. And a couple weeks ago, I got a message from someone that is looking to get into it, and I kind of talked to them a little bit. And yeah, it's just you got to put the effort in, and the time on working it, and but yeah, it's, everything. You're gonna struggle at the start, but everything will work out.
We'll throw it back here to Tim. If you had a few more questions, we got Mike here for a little bit.
Yeah, we got about 10 more minutes left. We'll make last call on social media now. So if you have anything you want to talk and discuss with Mike Duskey, be sure to drop it down in the comments. I know Blake's watching, and it goes back to the experience spotter thing. And Scotia Speed World just allowed spotters this year in Sportsman, and trying to find that camaraderie and trying to find that connection and that communication. How important was it to have Blake in your ear a couple of times this year?
Yeah, no, I think, we had a great year. We got to the track, and, when I first got the car off Ashton and stuff like that, I did the petty stuff and stuff like that. And it was good, but not good. I tore some stuff up and then sent it down to King Racing, and they were able to get me on the right path. And then we came to our own track, and we had success right off the get-go. We were able to win right off the get-go. And, I think Blake had an awesome time, and I had an awesome time. And, we didn't have a big crew. It was just me, Blake, and Greg Watts. And we just had a lot of fun. So.
And his experience being in the year must have helped too, right?
Yeah. And then, I noticed it when he wasn't there. I was, forget when it was now. Anyways, I was leading a race there. Anyways, then, I keyed the mic, and I never heard of Greg or Greg Watts, anyways, because Blake was away with Proud racing at IWK, and it was just, I could see the blue car coming. Anyways, then I started, gawking in the mirror, and I just clipped the flag stand, and lucky to hang on to it and just gather it back up.
You mentioned that win at the end of the season, wall-to-wall people, quote unquote. We use that because we were still talking about COVID days. But wall-to-wall people around that racetrack, seeing you win, get the burnout, climb out of the race car. How relieving was that to kick that monkey off your back at the last race of the season?
Yeah, like we won, I think 3 races before we won the actual feature, and I know there wasn't a whole lot of cars there. But we had the speed all year round. We were still running with, Gosby and McKinnon and, Proud and stuff like that. But yeah, no, to finally go the last day and, win what I want to do, which I was sure that I ruined it. But yeah, no, had to start at the back, and I think 3 to go. I finally passed, Tyler Smith and Mark's car, but yeah, no, it was a special race to win.
Now, looking forward to 2022, we got that rookie season off of our plates. That's behind us now. What are you most looking forward to in 2022? And what are the goals? Can we get that championship, get a couple of wins? What do you have your mindset on going forward here this year?
Yeah, for me, I've never had good luck, points racing or anything like that. I've always, it's always been thirds. It's always been seconds. And, I never look at the points thing. I've always just went out and win races. And that's just where I look at it, is you go to the racetrack to win races. And then if you can capitalize, at the end of the year and be up front, which, we were able to luckily finish third last year.
It's going to be a great season out there. Schedule looks good. For those that are, might be in Nova Scotia that might not have experienced a regular Pro Stock show at Oyster Bed or experienced one of those shows, obviously they're going to come over for those 2 tour races. But what can we do to twist their arm to cross the Confederation Bridge or come across the ferry to watch you race on a regular basis and run for that championship?
Oh, I think, if the way the schedules are looking everywhere, you're able to get to some different racetracks and stuff like that. And then that's the same as me, is, when we're not racing here, if we can go watch a race somewhere else or race there, and, fans are the biggest thing. And, if we don't have that, then we don't have who we really racing for. So.
We mentioned maybe a Bandolero in the future, but where do you see yourself in your racing program in 10 years?
I'm not really sure. I like the Pro Stock where we're at right now. And like racing at the home track as much as I can. I've always said that I'd like to do, the series of Pro Stock, but, it just comes with, your crew. You got to like rely on a crew and, and just your sponsors and stuff like that.
Do we have anything else on social media, Dylan?
Like my win total, 0.
But that's going to change. You're going to get in a demolition car this year, right?
Hell yeah, maybe if I can get, sponsorship's the big thing. What dealership do I have to go to show off my old beat up Pontiac Montana? Hell
yeah, maybe. I think that was the most exciting, optimistic thing that I've heard out of you in the first 52 shows that we've done this. Dylan is open for sponsorship, by the way, folks. Mike, this has been fun. You mentioned those marketing partners that help you get to the racetrack every week, and I know you've got a lot of dedicated partners on the side of that 42 car. Who makes it happen for you?
Yeah, no, I got a lot. We talked to a couple of them this year. Obviously we're still gonna have Tim's Overhead Doors. We're still gonna have our Mike Clark, Jerry Cody, and I'm probably forgetting some right now, but yeah, no. Anyways, we're looking to, compete at our home track. And if anyone wants to sponsor, we're more than welcome to take anything. So.
And for another 2.5 months, you're still the most recent winner at Oyster Bed Speedway, right?
Sure.
This has been fun catching up, Mike. Looking forward to seeing you on the racetrack this year. It's going to be a fun season at Oyster Bed, and we'll catch up, I'm sure, before the racing season starts.
Okay. Perfect, guys. Thank you.
That's Mike Duskey, driver, the number 42. We are going to step away for a few seconds and bring you back. Austin McDonald is in the wings. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
This time by white flag, the leaders side by side.
Looking to the inside, McCarty up top, into turn number 3. What'll happen into turn number 3? A little bit of contact. Up the racetrack goes McCarty. Here comes Matthews down low. Bobby McCarty is your winner.
Bobby McCarty is a Cars Tour winner.
It starts here and it ends here.
Perfect. There we go. The Cars Tour races this weekend at Caraway Speedway for the 30,000 to win Old North State Nationals for the late model stock division. But we're going to talk pro late models in the inaugural race for the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour Pro Late Model Division. And who other better to preview it with than Austin McDonald, driver of the number 13. Austin, how's your trip been so far?
Oh, it's been good. It's nice to talk to you guys again. It was really good to get back on your show. No, we had a good drive down. We actually only had one accident on the way, blew a tire on the truck, of course, about 9:30 at night on the highway. Good place to do it, if any. But no, it's been good. We've just been down here in Mooresville hanging out for about a week now. We got the car unloaded at Jeff Folt's, his race shop down here in Mooresville, just probably 5 minutes away from where we are. Got it unloaded, and he's been working hard on that, and we have for the past week just to really get things ready and get it set up for the week coming. We're gonna go hang out there tomorrow and work with him for the day and really finish up the car.
There's been a lot of news in your camp recently. Let's start with the Kawicki Driver Development Program semifinalists. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I am really excited for this opportunity right now. I'm very grateful for Kawicki for reaching out to me. And well, I mean, I reached out to them at the start, but for them considering me as an applicant, it's really, really good program. And I've been through their phase 2 now. I had a phone interview about a week and a half ago, and now I'm just waiting to hear on, I think it's March 23rd on the bull ring, whether I will get a phone call or not. So I'm very excited for that opportunity and looking forward to see what comes.
And there's only been, I think there's been 2 Canadians, Danny Benedict and of course Cole Butcher. And to be a part of that program, I know TR has been up to Scotia Speed World and been a part of our Cat 250 before. So how neat would it be to further yourself and get in there and work with TR and the gang?
It would be amazing. From the start, I remember watching Cole Butcher and another good friend of mine, Derek Griffith. The two of them always ran for the program, and I really thought that it was just a great program for racers and what they do for racers in this generation to really give back to the sport and then let us give back to the Kawicki program. So that's something I'm really looking forward to. And I mean, just talking with those guys and everybody over at that program, they do a great job and they're really interested in us drivers. And it's really nice to be able to reach out and talk to those guys about, our generation racing and really honoring Alan Kawicki and everybody with that program.
Absolutely. We are live and interactive with Austin McDonald. Keep Dylan Langell busy, and I know Dylan can probably relate to this. This is Dylan, our first guest I think we've had in 52 episodes where I've had multiple messages. When is Austin's interview? So I think this is one of the most anticipated interviews I think that we've had in a while.
Man, I keep muting my mic because
turn your microphone on.
The cat was doing stuff in here, and I was yelling at him. Sorry, and I'm sure Austin doesn't want to hear me yell at the cat. Austin, it's very exciting that you're going to be doing a little bit of racing here coming up. I'm sure some fans will probably have the question, and we talked about it last time you were on, or maybe we didn't dive too deep into it, but 2022, what's it looking like for you? How many tour races do you plan on doing? Open races here in the Maritimes? How much American racing are you doing on top of the stuff you already did?
So actually right now, me and my dad, we're just making up our schedule. We're going to release it on our Facebook and our Twitter. You guys should all go follow that, by the way. The more followers we get, the better it looks and the more interactive we can be with you guys. But we definitely have a big schedule for now. I mean, Tim mentioned the Cars Tour. We plan to run all 12 races on that to follow that all the way through, maybe run for points. We'll see where we're at. Right now, our goal is to win as many races as we can, and points will follow. That's always been our attitude. We're also looking to run about five or six pass races throughout the year. We are going to run the Easter Bunny race next weekend, Caraway first this weekend, and then the Easter Bunny. I don't think our name's on the list there yet, but we did send in our package last week, so hopefully it'll be up on their website soon. And definitely Riverside, of course. It's my favorite racetrack around the Maritimes, and probably one of my favorite all around. We plan to run about 2 or 3 races there. Definitely, if the IWK 250 is on, we will be there for that. That's in our books. And after running Nashville and 5 Flags last year, that's definitely one of our priorities to try to make that happen. I mean, we'll be looking for sponsorship later in the year, I'm sure, for those 2 races, but they are number 1 and number 2 on our list to hopefully get to.
Dan Eddy's watching. He was just on the show. He wrote, great young man and a family that loves racing too. You come from a big racing family. And Dan kind of got the ball rolling here with a topic that's kind of been our topic tonight, sponsorship in racing. You've got King Freight Lines behind you, but you just mentioned the sponsorship as well you're looking for. How are you finding sponsorship? Has it been a bit weird racing in the States and racing in Canada at the same time? How's that been for you and your crew?
It's certainly a challenge to try and find guys that'll come on, just being so far out of the Maritimes, right? But it's been great. My parents have been down. They came down with me. We traveled down. My grandparents, Lola and Judy, are coming down. Gosh, they left today, but unfortunately, it's kind of if you have any luck at all, it's bad luck. Their truck broke down on the way. They got to Woodstock and their truck broke down, but they said they're getting it fixed tonight and tomorrow morning, and they should be back on the road. So I mean, that's really good. We'll have the whole family here for a couple of weeks anyway. I think our plan is to stay down here for about 6 weeks. Just working with Jeff Bolts in the shop and just focusing on that Cars Tour and a few pass races that are around here. Heading back to Thompson, where we ran last year, in New Hampshire a couple of years ago. Those 2 are kind of early on too for us. So we're definitely looking forward to those 2 as well.
How is Rolly doing?
He's been great. I think he's very excited to get back down here in the sunshine. He's kind of a different man when you get him away from work and King Freight Lines and get him towards that racing side. He's always loved racing, and it's always been a huge part of him. So I mean, it's really good to see him at the racetrack and really get him involved, because once he gets down here, it's just a totally different world for him. He starts working on the car more and being able to hang out around the racetrack and the race shop, and it's just really great to have him with us. I mean, he's backed me my whole career, starting in Bandolero, as you guys mentioned, Dan Eddy. I still remember when I was new to Bandos, he actually helped me at the track and came to the track and helped me out. And he's just a really great guy to have around always. So between him, my grandfather, and my parents, I mean, everybody who supports me, the guys back at King Racing, I've been in contact with a little bit here. They're hecklers there. They always heckle me about pretty much everything. So, we play around, but it's just been really great to have all these guys support me and really try to see me do my best.
Ken Corbett's watching. He wrote, can't wait to see you in the King Card live this summer. You kind of laid out, and you're going to lay out on your social media platforms of what you're doing. Before I throw it back to Tim in Denver, I should say, you talk about the King Racing and King affiliation. Corey Hall just did the World Series of Asphalt in New Smyrna. What'd you think of Corey's performance there? He had a lot of good runs, some tough luck here and there, but overall, I think he did great. What do you think?
Absolutely. It sucks when you go to a big event like that and you can't have great luck, because I think he certainly had the car to really win a few of those races, and I was hoping for him to do it. Me and Jonathan stayed back in the shop, and I mean, I watched every night except for I think one night I missed, but I watched every night just to see how Corey did and kind of support him that way. But no, I think he did a wonderful job. He's super strong around here. We know that on the tour and really everything like that. But no, he's strong, and I mean, I think he's somebody to look out for this year. Of course, you guys saw his finishes last year, the 4 or 5 wins that he had. So, and it's really good. I hope he can come down here and maybe work with us for a few races. I know we talked about that. I mentioned it, and when I go back home, I'll work with him in the shop again and at the racetrack. But he's just a great guy to have around. He really tries to help you learn about the cars more, and that's really beneficial to me. To have him in the shop. Me and him talk a lot, and really he's been a big help for me learning through these pro stocks and about them, and really helped me get my feet wet in that aspect of them.
If you have a question for Austin here, leave her in the comments, Tim.
I want to talk about the Cars Tour, because going to races back and forth the last month or so with Tony Stevens, I've heard Cars Tour, everything. I'm looking forward to Saturday's race. There's two kind of storylines, I guess, going in. Obviously, the late models have their 30K to win race, but this is the first Cars Pro late model race. It used to be the Super, and now it's gone to the Pro. So how cool is it to be a part of that transition period? Because you've run the Super before down here. How cool is it to be a part of that transition, to be a part of the first Pro late model race of the Cars Tour?
Oh, it's super cool. Yeah, we ran the Motor Mile last year with the Cars Tour, and gosh, one other track I can never remember the name of it. The year before, but it's certainly fun. The Super was always fun, but you know, we focused on the Pro because that's how we run in the past tour and at home on our Maritime Pro Stock Tour. So really, it'll be good, I think, for me and a lot of these newer kids. I saw quite a few kids. Luke Fenhouse will certainly be good competition, and there's a few other guys I know that will be really good competition this year. I think there's 5 or 6 really strong cars that I'm looking forward to racing against, and hopefully we'll be there with them. But I think the transition was a good thing for the Cars Tour to do. It certainly changes things up, gives guys a different aspect to follow. I think it's great, and I'm really glad to be down here and being able to be a part of that. The Cars Tour does a wonderful job with their media too. I should mention that it's always on their Facebook, and they're always trying to produce get the drivers' names out and everything like that. I know the events that I went to last year, they really made a big deal about their drivers and everything. I mean, driver introductions and all that. It was just huge for them. So I really want to be a part of the tour that produces their drivers too. Really, it's a really good tour, and the owner is a great guy to work with. We went down for that one race at Motor Mile last year, and I mean, he came right to our trailer when we got there and shook my hand and really just told me how much he appreciates us being there, which is huge for me.
Yeah, Jack and Keeley and all their staff do a great job. Southern National, by the way, was the other race back in 2020. As a driver, obviously, COVID's happened. There's been a bunch of this happened. I know you've raced at home, won some big Legends races, won some Pro Stock races, been up front, done all that stuff. Looking back from that 2020 race at Southern National to where we are now, how much have you come through as a driver, and how much have you learned as a driver looking back to that race 2 years ago?
I mean, I think I'm in a totally different world right now than what I was then. Experience on track and off track. I mean, that's when I was still in school, so I really focused on my school when I was attending and not graduated yet. It was a big part of my life, and I really kind of put my priorities towards that. But since I've graduated, I've been at the King Racing shop full time now, learning as much as I can, really. And I mean, even running at places like Pensacola and Nashville and all these big tracks with all these big names, and just being able to gain all that experience, even racing at home and around Maine and all that with Derek Griffith and Eddy McDonald and those guys. It's been a huge learning curve, where I think I've gained so much just over the past year and a half. I mean, I know with COVID, we haven't been able to run a lot in the Maritimes, but even 5 or 6 races a year helps. Everything helps. I mean, we've always had a view where if you can be in the car as much as you can, that's good. I should mention that too. This year we do plan to run as many Legend races as we can. I mean, I know it won't be many, but certainly if we have off weekends or in between weekends, we will definitely be looking for that. Looking for a Legend car seat. We haven't even gotten to work on my Legend cars yet. We've been too busy working on the Pro Stocks and getting ready for the trip down here. It's just everything's been really busy. So you might see us run a car here or there. Hopefully reach out to maybe some of our old buddies at either Joe Ryan Race Cars or Matt Drake or somebody like that, and hopefully get back into a car like that. And they're great guys to work with as well, Matt and Joe. So certainly that's in our books too.
I was going to say, since you're down here and you're racing cars down here, summer shootout doesn't conflict with a weekend. So does that open the door to come back to Charlotte Motor Speedway?
Well, I mean, I'd say probably. The summer shootout was always kind of my kryptonite. We could never quite win a race there. We won lots of races between Atlanta and Anderson and racetracks like that. The shootout was just a different animal. You talk to anybody, Charlotte and the track alone, and just you go there with that many cars, and it's just a super hard event to to let alone make, but start up front and win a race in. You need more than just skill. You need luck on your side, and sometimes that's been iffy for me. But no, certainly I hope to run maybe a race at the shootout or something like that. I mean, there's lots of Friday night and Thursday night shows between Atlanta and Anderson, Tri-County. I mean, I know we're going to run Tri-County this year in the Pro too, so it would be good to get back there in the Legend car.
Now, you mentioned the Cars Tour and how they do their media. You missed production day by a couple of days, a couple of weeks ago, and I was responsible for the rapid fire station where we asked a bunch of questions to the drivers. And since you're full time, I might be able to twist Tony Stevens' arm maybe on the weekend to put you through the gauntlet. But I'll ask you one of the questions that we did have. You've seen the schedule, 12 races on this Pro Late Model deal. What track stands out to you as the track that you think, hey, I'm going to perform well at? And is there a track on there that says, might not be my strongest performance looking at the 12 races?
I would say between Tri-County and Caraway this upcoming weekend, those should be strong tracks for me, especially Tri-County. I always had good luck, and I was always fast at Tri-County in the Legend car, so it certainly builds confidence if you know you've run there before. I know it's a different car and everything, but Legend cars I find are almost one of the hardest cars to handle and to drive. So I'm really looking forward to those two races. In terms of difficult tracks or tracks I might struggle at, I don't know, maybe some of the ones that I haven't been at before. You know, that's always what you assume, that there's going to be a little bit of struggle. Like I mentioned, I'm going to be working with Jeff Boltz, and we've talked, and he said he's had great setups at most of these tracks. He's had cars win just previous weekends at Caraway, and so that certainly helps build confidence too. We struggled a little bit at the Motor Mile last year with the Super, and I mean, we qualified, I think, 8th or 9th, which wasn't too bad, but everybody's so close down here, right? You get into qualifying and you're between like a 10th or 2 from the whole field. And that's definitely the major difference between home and here. You know, home you run within 5 or 6 guys, and I know we don't qualify, but in practice, there's always that 5 or 6 that are within a 10th and a half, where that extends to 12 cars down here. So it certainly makes it hard to pass. You know, you get out there racing against 12 cars and you get 20, 30 laps on your tires, and just really, really difficult to pass. And especially at a place like Motor Mile where you have to qualify good. We haven't had a lot of experience qualifying. We're certainly getting better at it at the Derby, and the Derby definitely helped us. I mean, I know we only ran the Snowflake, but it was certainly amazing to get into that race, let alone make it. But we were hoping to finish that race. That was a huge race we wished to finish. I think we got 80 laps in and got caught up in caution, but no, that was also a confidence booster for us. So.
We're going to get to Denver in a moment, and I know Dan Eddy is still watching. Hickory is on the schedule. He's been burning to do a couple of practice laps at Hickory. Is there any way we can get Dan down and maybe do a couple of practice laps in the 13 car?
You have to ask Jeff that one. You know, Dan's a great guy, like I mentioned before, and he's welcome at our camp any day of the week. And especially with me, he can always come and hang out and give us a helping hand anytime he wants. I raced against Brad a couple times this year, and they're just a great family. Everybody in it, you know, Brad's a great guy to race against on the track. He never roughs you up or anything like that. And sometimes he takes a bad rap probably from me, because I am a little bit of a rough racer, you know. I do anything that I have to get the job done sometimes, where he's just such a respectable guy. But no, they're just a great family all the way around. And I mean, I can't say anything bad about those two. You know, they're just great guys. And like I said, they're welcome anytime they want to come and give a hand.
He says he's getting back in the seat for one more race to race with Brad. So if you're available on that weekend, you know, you might be able to bring the 13 out and come play with him, maybe rattle his cage a little bit, right?
Oh, I don't know if I want to be anywhere near Dan. It's been a long time, I think, since he's been in a car. No, but I definitely want to watch that. So, I mean, if he can reach out and tell me when that's going to be, I'll clear my schedule to come see that.
I think there's a lot of people that are in the same boat. A couple more comments on social before we go to Denver. Dylan, what do you got over there?
Well, you know, just going off Dan's comment there, he's wondering, you know, how difficult it is to jump from the Pro Late Crate motor engine up to a spec Super Late motor when you do that.
It's definitely a challenge. You know, you're an extra almost 200 horsepower between the two. To me, it just depends on the racetrack. You know, if you get a big racetrack where there's lots of grip, the difficulty kind of comes down, right? Because that's what super I find the biggest difficulty is your throttle control. Racing legends for so long, I feel like I've gained pretty good throttle control and kind of being light on the throttle. My grandfather has always praised me for not being able to hear me pick up throttle, which sometimes is a good thing. I mean, at Ganesh, you just need to whack that throttle to get up off the corner. But certain tracks like Pensacola or Motor Mile, where you really need to be soft with it, I don't mind too much, but it is a challenge. And I mean, tire conservation is huge too in supers, and that's something that I don't really get to do a lot because we run a few 250 lap races around home. I think I've only been in one race, one 250 lappers. So that's the other big challenge. And I mean, coming down here and running 45s, F45s, and and different tires on the pass tour too, P25s and all that is definitely a change too. You have to change your concept of what tires are going to do what in the long run. And I think the 45s down here definitely hold up better than the 1020s at home. But no, it's definitely a big step. So I'm glad to be running some more pro races this year, but hopefully maybe even at the Snowball or Nashville, some of those big races, we might be able to step back into the super and give it a shot.
Our most recent guest before you, Mike Duskey, wrote, "How big of a part is Andrew to you? I've seen them picking at you at the shop."
Andrew is a big thorn in my side. No, but he's a great guy. He's been really, really helpful my whole pro stock career, at the shop and being able to learn from him. Yeah, he might be a pain to work for sometimes, and he does heckle, like I said, teases a lot, but no, he's a great guy and just very knowledgeable. Like, I don't think you'd meet somebody around the Maritimes that's more knowledgeable about these pro race cars and super race cars. So that's been great to have him on board. And, he talked about maybe coming down and filling in for Jeff a few races. Jeff has some big opportunities this year with Peary and stuff like that he can't maybe make a few of our pro races. So it'll be great to have him down here and giving us a helping hand with the car down here too.
That's all I got on social media, Tim.
Denver, what do you got for Austin?
Well, Austin, first of all, thanks for taking the time to join us on here tonight. First question I want to ask you, I've asked this to a couple drivers before. Being down in the States, do you notice a difference in the way the drivers drive, whether that be the aggression level or maybe they drive smarter or maybe the opposite compared to the drivers here in Atlantic Canada?
I would say a little bit of a difference for sure. I find that early in races here, they don't push as hard. They really stay contained and save their tires and save their stuff. Maybe that's more experience in longer races, or they just really try to protect their gear. I find down here for the first 150, 200 laps, however long the race is. But you get within those last 30 laps and everybody's pushing hard. And I mean, if you're in the way, it. They don't really hesitate to put a bumper on you, but you understand that, right? It's the last 30 laps, 20 laps, and people are pushing hard. So I find that's the main difference between at home, like at Riverside, they go 150 laps hard. You don't get a chance to take a breath, which is good, I think. But really, if you can conserve your tires and save some of that for the end, I think that's also a good idea. So,
what would you consider to be a successful season for 2022? You have a lot on your plate, a lot of races scheduled. If we have you on the show, say in November, December, and you look back, what would you consider to be successful?
I mean, I definitely would like to win some races this year. That's been a big goal of mine. We've been so close. Thompson finishing second and Oxford finishing third. So that's definitely the main goal, win some races. But running the full cars series, we'd really like to finish in the top three or even win that points deal. We haven't run a lot of points championships. I mean, other than the national US Legend Cars ones, but track championships and stuff like that. So it would be really nice to have a title behind our name too.
Looking ahead beyond 2022, and I see Lori Hutt had a question here asking about ARCA particularly, but as a broader question, looking ahead past 2022, where do you see yourself?
Well, I am going to school. I am starting school maybe in December or August, depending on how our season goes so far. Down here, actually, probably about a half an hour from where we are now at UNC Charlotte. For mechanical engineering with a minor in motorsports, which would be my main goal. Next year though, I definitely plan to continue racing. as much as I can with school, and kind of, I know guys do it. There's guys like William Byron and everybody like that who, go to university and still continue their career. And I definitely like to do that. My focus will kind of switch back to school. And you mentioned ARCA. ARCA's always been a big goal of mine to even run 1 or 2 races. New Smyrna was always kind of a big goal of mine. After running the Super there and the Pro there, to maybe get to one of those races in an ARCA car. We just haven't been able to put a deal together. It's definitely a big change in money to run one of those ARCA races compared to the Pro Late Model races. I think you can run like probably 4 or 5 Pro Late Model races for one ARCA race and a good ride. And I feel like that's huge with the ARCA series. You really need to be with a good team who has a good setup to really run good. And that would be our goal. You don't want to get into something like that and just do it halfway. You should really be committed to things like that. So it's definitely in the back of our minds. If I start winning some races, the possibilities are endless for my grandfather. That's always been the big thing. If you can provide results, then he'll get you anywhere. So that's my main goal. If we can win some races and maybe get our name out there, like I mentioned, get some sponsorship, and even working with this Scotia deal, hopefully would be a big help. To get our name out there and just gain some fans and really interact with a bunch of people. So.
From experience, I wish you luck with school. I'm going to throw it back over to Tim. Actually, we got a couple minutes left. Tim, I guess last call, eh?
Yeah, Paul told us we can run a couple of minutes late. So, Paul, I'm going to steal about 5 minutes or so from your time tonight. I'm just going to go over time. I apologize. We will bring it back to you at some point. I did see on Lee's, I think it was Facebook, that he's running off some T-shirts. So for Brent Patterson and everybody else that's out there, you got some more merch on the way, right?
Yes, I should mention that. That will also be on our Facebook and Twitter. So hopefully, I think we're actually going to run in tomorrow morning and get those from Lee. He's only about an hour away from us. We'll have some pictures on hopefully tomorrow or the next day, and we'll be selling those at the racetrack. And I mean, if you guys just want to DM our Facebook or anything like that, reach out to us and we'll make sure you get them. We can ship them. We'll have a truck coming home here in a couple of weeks. We're going to bring down our other car for that Hickory race. So when we send it back home, we can send some sweaters home and certainly get those to everybody. They are a little different this year. As you probably saw on the back, they're the same, but we kind of have a different logo going on the front, and we will have some hats for sale too. I know those are a big seller in motorsports. I'm just hoping that I can get my hands on a few of those hats before they go out the doors too fast. My dad already told me I might even have to pay for those this year. So.
I know from experience, obviously, Lee does phenomenal work, and should mention as well that LJ is back on board with Tim's Corner this year too, doing some T-shirts. And I gave him an idea. I'm not sure what he's going to do with it and run with it, but I gave him an idea, and that's all you need to do with Lee Jordan is give him something and he'll run with it. So I'm excited to see what he comes up with, and good to see he's back doing your stuff again this year too. Let's look at Caraway. What would you be happy with at the end of Saturday after we run 100 laps with the Pro Late?
I mean, I've been to Caraway before. I've run the Legend car there once. I think we wrecked out of that one on the last lap going for the win. But no, my plan is to go there and either win or finish top 3. That's really my goal this year. All the way along is just get those results and get those good finishes. I have a lot of confidence in Jeff. He mentioned that he had a car there probably about last weekend or the weekend before that won that race or one of the local shows. So that's my plan anyway. I think we're going to work with the Walker guys again this year. All great guys. They're out around the shop today and kind of working around getting things ready and prepared. So that's my main goal. I mean, you never know until you show up. We have practice Friday, and I hope everybody can follow along. We'll have some posts on our Facebook and everything like that. Hopefully, our plan is to be a little better and a little more on top of our Facebook and Twitter this year. Get our results and everything like that out there sooner for you guys. But no, you never know until you show up to the racetrack what the conditions are going to be. Or I haven't raced against probably, I think I saw 14 on the entry list. I don't think I've raced against more than probably 2 or 3 of them at a time or before at all. So we'll have to see how the competition is this year and see how everybody's running, but really just focus on ourselves and do the best that we can. I mean, because that's all you can do at the end of the day.
And I know Keeley forwarded the entry list to Tony, and I got to see it. There's 17 now on that entry list because of Hickory canceling their race, I believe is what I was told. So there's 17 on the entry list now, and it continues to grow for Friday and Saturday. Going to be a fun day. You can follow along on pitroad.tv or carstour.tv if you want to follow along. And of course, it's a subscription, so you can follow Austin all season long on the Cars Tour and everything else that they do at Pit Road TV. You mentioned the marketing partners that are on the race car. Austin, who makes it happen for you?
Well, certainly King Racing and King Freight Lines. Those two are my main sponsors. You see those on the quarters, the hood, and all that. We have a lot of white left on our race car. If you guys are wondering, excuse me, we can always put more stickers and more sponsors on that. But McKay's and Nova as well, they reach out every year and really help us with the trucking business too, and kind of work with us towards the race car to put some money into that fund. So I have to thank those guys, and hopefully you'll see a Kowicki sticker on the car here in a few weeks too. That would be great. And I mean, even to be a semifinalist in their program is just an amazing opportunity to get to work with those guys right now. And I'm really looking forward to hopefully being a big part of that.
Now, I've got one last question. I know your biggest race fan has been itching to get down to the States for 2 years since COVID closed. How have you been able to contain your mother? Because I saw the Facebook posts and everything else, and she's been let loose in the States. How has it been able to contain her, and how excited is she to get to the racetrack on Saturday?
Oh, she is super excited to be down here. And I mean, you see her on Facebook with her Dunkins and her coffee and all that stuff. She's loving it. Definitely. It's been a change, it's been hard to kind of do anything around there times, right? To get out without your mask and anything like that, and just get back to normalization. Where now that she's crossed the border, I think it's definitely great to see her happy again, and being able to get out and really kind of get back to half normalization. So no, I'm definitely glad to have her with me. She's probably my biggest supporter. Actually, there's no probably about that. I love my mom. My mom loves me, and I have to thank my grandparents and my dad. But my mom's somebody that I always try to thank and try to mention at the end of races and after interviews, because she's just been there through the whole thing. I mean, through my brain injury, through all of that. I wouldn't be here without her, or have the opportunities that I would without her. So.
I saw a picture of a to-go margarita from Applebee's or something like that, which is Dylan Langel's favorite U.S. establishment, by the way. So we're going to have to have a conversation on Friday or Saturday. So just make sure she's prepared for that. Austin, this has been fun. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you Friday at practice, and all the best on Saturday.
Thanks, guys. It means a lot to be back on the show, and anytime you want to reach out and talk, and it'll be good to see you on Friday, Tim, and we'll see you there, and hopefully see anybody else that's going. And if anybody has any questions or just ever want to talk to me or ask me about opportunities to come down and work with us or whatever, just reach out on my Facebook. And, we're always on it to talk to you fans. And I mean, it's just great to have all the support and feel the love that we feel right now. So thanks, guys.
Sounds good. Thank you. And go get them on Saturday. That's Austin McDonald and Denver. So we have some news about the giveaway we were going to do last month. So we had about a dozen entries. Here's the problem. You have to purchase a Tim's Corner TV, either subscription or event pass or whatever else. So those dozen that filled it out actually didn't purchase anything. So we, as you can see on the graphic, we are extending it to March. So if you purchased anything in February, you missed your opportunity at $50 towards your favorite driver. You missed the boat on that. But if you purchased anything in February or March, head over to timscorner.ca/promo, fill out the ballot, and you have an opportunity to win $50 for your favorite race car driver and tickets to either Scotia Speed World Season Opener, which is, we can say that the weekly racing series is now Sunday, May 22, or the Speedway Miramichi event coming up on that next weekend. And I believe Barry has a pit pass for that driver as well that wins that. So everything exciting. Be sure to head over to timscorner.ca/promo, and with your TCM TV purchase, you'll be able to win in the month of March. And hopefully we can sit here in April and give a driver $50. That's what we're hoping. We're a giving bunch around here. Want to thank Paul Strickland Jr. for giving us an extra 5-ish so minutes. I know. Are you GTA tonight? Paul said he couldn't hear us earlier, so we're going to try and see if Paul can hear us. GTA tonight, Paul?
Yeah, we're probably going to do a little GTA. Shout out to those guys in High Caliber tuning in on the Twitch. We finally got the simulcast on Twitch figured out. So twitch.tv strictly 94. We're going to do a little Grand Theft Auto tonight. Maybe drink a couple of wobbly pops and have a little bit of PG-13 fun.
Yes, absolutely. Head over there and check Paul out. And there's some iRacing stuff. RBR just wrapped up last night. NEP still has a couple of races left to go in their season. And the TCM stuff, for those that are watching that haven't seen a lot of the TCM stuff on Facebook, we've been doing a couple of races, maybe one every 2 weeks or so. I think there might be one next Tuesday. We're still trying to finalize everything, but the month of March, the end of March, start of April is going to be busy. We have the showcase coming up. We have the Open. We have the Mike on the Rock race coming up as well. And you'll be able to see a few of those on Bedane TV and, of course, the Tim's Corner Motorsports Facebook and all that fun stuff. So, Dylan, we're going to put you to work at the end of March, start of April, and we'll get Mike on the Rock back going. Surprise.
Yeah, we got to get all warmed up here for real racing season because that's going to be coming around the corner. Denver and I don't have the luxury being in the U.S. right now to warm our chops up. Denver with his flag waving skills and everything with me with my microphone chops.
For the record, it's not that warm down here. I mean, we came back from Florida. Clarksville was probably the warmest Toilet Bowl Classic that we've been to. It was, in the mid to high teens. Usually that event when the sun goes down, it's like 1, 2, 3 degrees. I've been there before when it snowed. It's the warmest toilet bowl on record. We actually got to interact with Kenny Wallace on the live look-in, and he was saying the exact same thing. So it was good to have that. It was about 10 degrees here today. It rained all day, and that's the one thing that Austin didn't mention is there's a little rain in the forecast coming up for Saturday. So the Cars Tour is already looking at adapting whatever, like any other series.
Oh, that big storm's coming to hit us too.
Okay, we'll send it up on the line. Hopefully we get it Friday. So they practice Friday. Pro late model races Saturday. Sunday is the $30,000 to win Old North State Nationals. 36 cars registered for 28 spots. So not only talked a lot about the pro race coming up this weekend, but that late model stock race is going to be good as well. Tony Stevens and Lenny and the boys will have the call for you. I'll be able to sit back, enjoy, and relax on my last weekend here before I fly back home. So next week we have our show. You're playing. Okay, so hold on. Before we go, and I know Paul will allow me to tell this story. Before we came on the air, you told me I thought you were playing hockey, Dylan. You're not coming next week, but it's not hockey. Can you tell us what you're doing?
So I'm on March break. I'm burning some vacation days. I actually do have a few South Shore Lumberjack games before I go to the spa. I have a spa evening. If anyone has a girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, and they're into the spa stuff, Nordic Spa in Nova Scotia, it gets booked up instantly. And the week we're off, that me and the fiance, that was the day it fell on. And happy wife, happy life. I would like to see racing season, so I'm gonna go to the spa.
See, so everybody that's here besides Paul, me and Paul are in the same boat. We don't have the happy life, happy wife thing. I can't speak for Paul, but I would assume that I would probably not say no if the right one came along. But she hasn't recently. So, Paul, am I speaking for you too?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of live by, happy Paul, something, all, I don't know. I haven't really put it together. You kind of put me on the spot there. But
happy Paul, happy for all.
There you go. Nailed it. Happy Paul, because it's a free-for-all.
Okay.
He's just happy that Paul's just happy that William Regal came back to wrestling.
Oh, are you kidding me? Amazing. Stone Cold coming back for WrestleMania. What?
Yeah, it's a fun time to be a wrestling fan, I can tell you that. Denver, final thoughts before we close this thing off.
Oh, well, Tim, it's been a busy week. I don't know how I can top the discussion that we were just having, so I think we'll see how next week goes. Now, are you going to be around next week, Tim? Because I know you got some travel plans coming up in the near future, too.
That is the plan. I leave, I think, 8 a.m. the next day to fly home. So I'm going to talk to you guys, talk to everybody that's watching on Tim's Corner on Wednesday night. Robbie Thompson says he's going to be here. We will wait and see how that all works out. But we might have to have a couple of blue yummies before we get that show underway. And
time out.
Who knows? What?
What's a blue yummy?
It's a Bud Light.
Oh, blue yummy. Okay, right on.
I tried to explain to somebody at the production day we had a couple of weeks ago what a blue yummy was, and I had to explain it to them too. So it's not the first time. But if Robbie is on the show, I'm sure we're going to have a couple of those. And he says he's bringing some announcements too. So maybe it is a Bud Light sponsorship. Maybe it's not. We'll have to figure that one out. But want to thank all of our marketing partners as well that help put on this show and all the shows that we have here on Tim's Corner TV. And we've got some exciting ones to come back. As we mentioned, LJ Designs Talk to Lee. He's back on board. Obviously, EIT Race Radio's Auto World, KCP, St. Louis Bar and Grill. There's a bunch of them on there that are coming back for us this year. We're working through the list of contacting all of our marketing partners. So want to thank everybody. Still have some room as well for 2022 for everything that we do on TCM TV and of course here on Tim's Corner Live. That's going to do it for us here this evening. So on behalf of Paul Strickland Jr., Denver Magic, Dylan Langell, want to thank our guest tonight. Dan Eddy was awesome as always. Austin McDonald and Mike Duskey. We will see you next Wednesday. And if it was anything like this week, I'm sure we're going to have a lot to talk about. Until then, keep the hammer down, and we'll see you at the track.